And good evening from downtown Covington and Link NKY World Headquarters. I'm Michael Monks, Chief Content Officer here at Link, alongside Mark Payne, Link NKY Politics and Government Reporter. This is our live primary election results show. Good evening, Mark. A big day ahead.
It's a big night, Michael. I'm excited to be here, and we're going to have a great night.
I think it's going to be a great night. Now, if you're tuning in, it's because you want to see election results. And guess what? So do we. And so we have a team of reporters all over the region working to collect numbers and to bring them to you live over the course of this broadcast. But we want to note that this election year may be unlike some other ones. We're hearing that perhaps the numbers won't come out the way that we're used to seeing them throughout the night. Mark, what can you tell us about what we know right now in the way results are going to be reported this evening?
Well, I know that the Secretary of State typically gets those results from all the courthouses around Kentucky. They have updated that software, and so they've redone their website. So they're not for sure how that is going to look right now, so results could be a little bit slower. With our reporters at the Kenton, Campbell, and Boone County courthouses, we should expect some results coming in from there rather quickly.
There's new software being used at the state of Kentucky to tabulate these results, and it affects the system through which county clerks are reporting the local numbers to Frankfort. We received a message from Kenton County Clerk Gabriel Summy just moments ago explaining that she would not be able to live stream the results as she typically does because of this new software. But we do have folks on the ground in all of the courthouses manually gathering numbers, and we have live reports coming up from Boone, Kenton, and Campbell counties where the numbers are being counted, where we hope to gather as much as we can over the course of the evening. And also, during our live broadcast tonight, you will see on the screen a live ticker. That will give you the latest numbers from all of the races, from U.S. Senate all the way down to the local legislative races, the local county races, the municipal race in Newport. We'll be updating those. Our Lacey Starling and our Megan Goth are crunching those numbers right now, receiving calls from our team out in the field and updating those throughout the evening. What you can also do is go to linknky.com right now. This video is embedded on that website. You can watch it there, and we have all of the races lined up for your viewing. Refresh the page and you'll see the latest numbers there as they come in. But another quick reminder, the numbers may be slower to report this evening due to a change in software. Mark, we just saw that the Secretary of State's website has already apparently crashed due to what we would presume to be intense volume.
Yeah, I think so. There's folks from all over Kentucky looking to find out what results are. With the polls closed at 6, we should start expecting numbers coming in soon, but that site seems like it's probably getting a lot of traffic right now, Michael.
You are watching live coverage of the May 2022 primary in Northern Kentucky, mostly Republican races in Northern Kentucky this evening, though there are some nonpartisan races involving family court judgeships and the Newport City Commission. We have reporters at all 3 county courthouses waiting to bring you live numbers remotely. We'll be checking in with them momentarily. Before we get to that, we'll talk about some of the big races locally that are on people's minds, because there are a lot of challengers going up against incumbent Republicans all across the region. Link NKY has covered the election cycle intensely. We've talked to just about everyone whose name is on the ballot this time around, if they were willing to answer our calls. And we have some races to keep an eye on. From my view, the big ones this time around: Kentucky House District 69, Republican Adam Koenig, an incumbent since 2006, facing a tough challenge, apparently, from Erlanger City Councilman Stephen Doan to win the Republican nomination for that seat. Talk a bit about what you've learned in that race.
Yeah, that is going to be one of the most highly contested races in our region. Stephen has been endorsed by Representative Thomas Massey. He's raised a lot of money since January, perhaps more than any other candidate in Northern Kentucky in that time frame. He's going to give Representative Koenig a tough time in that district.
I've heard that the incumbent is sweating that race in a way that he hasn't necessarily had to before, but we will be paying close attention to that. There's no way to know the state of these local races. There's not a lot of polling that we can turn to see what the race looks like. We're going to have a good idea, though, tonight, ideally, when all the votes are counted, who will be the Republican nominee out of House District 69. House District 66, Republican incumbent Ed Massey also facing a challenge from Steve Rawlings. What do we know about that race?
Again, Representative Ed Massey is going to face a tough challenge in that race. Steve Rawlings is what is called a Liberty candidate. He's trying to say that Ed Massey's not conservative enough, and he's going to put up a challenge in Boone County out there tonight.
We've heard Ed Massey say something along the lines of, you can vote with these folks, meaning what you've called the Liberty candidates, 99 out of 100 times, but you miss that one time, and suddenly you're an enemy.
Absolutely. And they typically will hold that against you if you vote against something that they think isn't conservative enough. And Representative Massey has said that quite a bit, and we'll see if it affects the outcome of the race tonight.
The Northern Kentucky Legislative Caucus is usually pretty well intact for years and years, with occasional new faces popping up as other members retire. It is very rare for an incumbent to be knocked off in an election. Usually they decide when they're finished holding that office. This year it could be different with these strong challenges. But we know for certain that there will be two new faces likely representing Northern Kentucky and Frankfort out of two different Senate districts. One is Senate District 24, which encompasses Campbell County, Bracken and Pendleton County, currently held by Republican Will Schroeder. He's decided not to seek re-election after holding that seat for 2 terms, so it's an open seat and a heavily Republican seat. And what we have there are 3 Republicans seeking that seat. Shelley Funky Frohmeyer. We have, who else do we have in this race?
We have Chris Robinson and Jessica Neal.
And we are watching this race. We hosted them in a forum, and talk about the dynamics of that one.
Yeah, that's interesting. Shelley Funky Frohmeyer seems to be more of a Republican that this term's getting thrown around quite loosely right now, but a chamber Republican. She's the more like typical Republican that's for infrastructure, for business. Jessica Neal, again, comes from that Liberty group that's attempting to push the Republican Party a little bit farther right. And then Chris Robinson, again, he's from farther south in the district, and so he's hoping to kind of represent some of those candidates that come from rural areas, because some of this district does encompass northern Campbell and now parts of Kenton County, and so he's hoping to represent some of those.
Another new face that will represent Northern Kentucky and Frankfort will do so from Senate District 20, which, incidentally, is a district entirely new to this region. In the redistricting process that was completed earlier this year, District 20 was moved northward from the Shelby County area to include Boone County, the southern half of Boone County. So for the first time, Boone County will have 2 state senators representing them in Frankfort, but Senate District 20 is still large. It stretches from southern Boone County all the way down to Franklin County, where Frankfort is, and we've got some familiar faces in this race, including longtime local legislator Jay Williams, who has been out of local politics for a long time, and a local Republican activist, Phyllis Sparks. They're both from the Boone County area running for this seat, and they've also got some challengers from Franklin County, including Kalen Studler and Mike Templeman. Let's talk about this one.
Yeah, that race is going to be really interesting. It's a district that stretches all the way from southern Boone and Kenton counties all the way down to Franklin County. And so I've heard a little bit that the fight is going to be in those counties that's kind of in between. Franklin County is a somewhat Democratic county, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out in the general election. But let's see how voters turn out, because it seems like they could potentially support the Franklin County candidates and Mike Templeman and Kalen Studler, or Northern Kentucky could turn out to support Jay Williams and Phyllis Sparks.
There's another open seat in the House from the Northern Kentucky Legislative Caucus, and that is House District 68, which has been held since the late 1990s by Republican Joe Fisher. He's decided not to seek re-election as a state representative this year, instead running against incumbent Supreme Court Justice Michelle Keller. That race will take place in November. In the meantime, there are 3 Republicans seeking nomination for District 68, and they are former Covington Diocese Superintendent of Schools Mike Kleins, and we also have Cold Spring City Councilman Paul Cloker and local conservative activist Myrna Eads seeking that nomination. There is a Democrat in this race waiting in the fall, apparently, to take on whoever wins this Republican nomination. But before that happens, today's primary. Talk about this one.
Yeah, this will be really interesting. Eads is the Liberty candidate of that group. She's been outraised by Paul Cloker and Mike Kleins, so it will be interesting to see if that kind of equates to votes. Whoever wins that would face Kelly Jones in the general election. And we should add, there's no Democratic primaries in any Northern Kentucky county in any Northern Kentucky districts. So we all are facing seeing all Republicans tonight, but that race in the 68th district will be really interesting. Joe Fisher has been a very constant conservative vote in the House, and I expect that these Republican candidates will want to continue some of his legacy.
You raise a good point. If you are a registered Democrat in Northern Kentucky and you went to do your patriotic duty today by casting a ballot, you didn't have to spend a lot of time there. The only Democratic primary on the ballot is for the U.S. Senate race that's coming up in the fall, really. Charles Booker is the prominent candidate from that race, but there are some minor candidates, so this is probably more of a formality on that side. And then there are some family court judge races in Kenton and Boone County, and if you live in Newport, you could also cast a ballot today for that massive city commission primary that has 10 candidates, 8 of whom will move forward to the November election in pursuit of 4 seats. You're watching Link NKY's live coverage of primary election 2022 in Northern Kentucky. I'm Michael Monks alongside Mark Payne. You can see the ticker at the bottom of your screen. Not a lot of numbers coming in yet. We are waiting for numbers to be reported. We said at the top of this, and if you're just joining us, we'll say it again. The way numbers are being calculated this year is different than in years past because the state of Kentucky has implemented new software. They haven't used an outside party as they had previously. Apparently, Mark, this is software that was created in-house here in the Commonwealth.
Correct. This was created in-house. This is the first year that they're using it, so they're not for sure how results are going to come in. They are expecting maybe a little bit of a delay. We do know that the website is down at this point. We don't know how long it's going to be down. The website's probably getting a lot of traffic, but we hope to see some results coming in soon. And we do have 3 reporters at the Boone, Kenton, Campbell County courthouses, and we should be getting results from there, Michael.
We're hopeful that by having boots on the ground in the local courthouses that we will be able to grab some results as they are tabulated rather than waiting for a lump sum of final votes coming out later in the evening. We are seeing some numbers trickle in from that U.S. Senate race, for example, so those numbers could be coming in from anywhere in Kentucky. We'll check in with our reporters coming up right here on this live broadcast at Link NKY. I want to remind you, if you're watching this on Facebook, you can pull up linknky.com. This video is on the website as well, on the same page as our list of every race where we will be updating throughout the night the results. All you have to do is go to that page, linknky.com, click on the elections picture that you see right there on the front, and you will find this video and you will find all of the races and the numbers as we get them. But again, it could be a trickle tonight. We are waiting to see when those numbers come in. But Mark and I will be with you throughout the evening until those results are finalized, and so will our friends across Boone, Kenton, and Campbell County. Let's check in with some of our reporters now, and I think it makes sense to start from the west to the east. Let's go now to Burlington in Boone County. That's where we find Link NKY reporter Caitlin Gebbe. Caitlin, how are things looking in Burlington this hour?
Hey, Michael. Things are quiet so far. We haven't had any results delivered to us yet, but what we do know is that there are 3 races that we have been watching closely. Those races being the race between candidates Jared Bethel and Jonathan Brown, who are vying for the property valuation administrator seat. That particular election is not being filled, Cindy Martin, who's the incumbent candidate, is not seeking re-election. So what we know from I don't have any sound.
No, she's okay, right? I mean, we could hear. Yes. Caitlin, you're fine. You can keep going.
Okay, thank you. It's good to know. So as long as the people at home can hear me, what we know so far is that the 2 candidates going for Cindy Martin's seat as PVA are Jared Bethel and Jonathan Brown. One is an attorney, one is an accountant, one is well-traveled, while the other has been in Boone County all his life. And so their campaigns have been very different, and so we'll see how their campaigns have, how effective they've been when we get those voter returns. Now, I know the conversation about the returns has been, a little back and forth on whether or not we'll get those results as quickly as we might have in years past. I've been told by the Boone County Clerk's office that the information that we received tonight should be on time and very timely with the updates on the website, but we do have people here, getting those physical returns just as a backup. We're also watching the race between incumbent candidate Judge Gary W. Moore, who has been in office for 24 years and is seeking another term. His challenger is Timothy Johnson, who has run a fairly quiet campaign. He was inspired to run over a land dispute between him and the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet. He owns some property over at Richwood Road, which, if you're in Boone County, you know is the site of a lot of construction right now. And so there were some questions about property values and temporary easements. He wasn't happy with the numbers that they gave. They went back and forth. That has been settled. And Timothy Johnson has told me that he has received over $250,000 for the land and the temporary easements. But that dispute inspired him to pursue the office of Judge Executive. So he is the challenger for Judge Gary W. Moore. And lastly, we have been watching the race for the Boone County Commission District 2 seat. I'm in the Boone County Fiscal Courtroom where the County Commission meetings take place. And the incumbent candidate, Charlie Kenner, who currently represents District 2, has been challenged by Chet Hand, who is also the Boone County Republican Party chair. There has been a lot of controversy in this race. There's also a pending defamation suit between Chet Hand and Charlie Kenner. Hand filed the lawsuit against Kenner, saying that he, using the website cheatingchet.com, which Kenner's campaign has claimed ownership of, that he published these lies about him, and that it has slandered his name and his reputation in the public, and so he is pursuing a defamation lawsuit on that. So those two candidates, they have had fairly equal campaign fundraisers. They have both spent around $25,000 on their local campaigns, and so we will see tonight whether or not those campaigns have been effective in the community, whether voters have listened and they want Kenner to stay, or if they're ready for a change in hands. There are also a couple constable races here in Boone County. We haven't been watching those as closely as the others, but we will have those results to you tonight. And we do have a Democratic primary here in Boone County for the 4th Congressional District, which, as Michael said, Charles Booker is the favorite candidate on that one.
Thank you, Caitlin. That is our Caitlin Gebbe reporting from the Boone County Courthouse in Burlington, along with our Patricia A. Shire, who is helping Caitlin gather numbers at this hour. You can see the ticker now starting to update a little bit with some numbers of local interest. If you're watching this live on Facebook and want to see all of the races at the same time, simply go to linknky.com. This video is embedded on the same page as all of the results. So just go to linknky.com, watch us there, and check out those results as they come in. We continue to let you know that this might be a slower than usual reporting night, but then again, you never know. But that's our report from Boone County. We'll check in with Caitlin again later on. Let's now go to Kenton County in Covington at the Kenton County Government Building, where naturally we find Kenton Hornbeck. Kenton, what's the scene in Covington?
Michael, it's great to hear from both of you as well, Mark. So the scene here is kind of slow. We've had the vote stop at 6. Like you guys were saying earlier, Gabe Summey has updated myself personally, as well as everybody in the studio, that the votes will be updated on the Kenton County Clerk's website via PDFs. She said there's going to be a timestamp, and you can refresh. That, and it will give you the most recent votes. But as of right now, there is no tabulations counted up. We still are at 0. So, but if you want to go to the Kenton County Clerk's website and check that out, feel free to do so. So Michael, Mark, there are a couple races that I've been looking at, that everybody's been looking at. The first is the Kenton County Fiscal Court race, Kenton County Commissioner for District 2. We have John Dowd versus Tony Schmiotti, and Tony is a public works employee. He's worked at the Kenton County Public Works for the past 25 years. Dowd, of course, is a politician. He's been in office since 2010. Former school superintendent at Ludlow. I thought that was kind of notable. He's also been a Kentucky state representative. He served in the Kentucky House for District 63 for 10 years. Right now, it seems that Schmiati's main campaign points are of fiscal conservatism, a general Republican. Yes, he has been endorsed by the Liberty Group, as Mark mentioned earlier. However, he's run on a campaign of increasing budget transparency within the Kenton County Fiscal Court, as well as decreasing budget contingencies, Michael. And another thing he's ran on, it's been really big and important for him, is anti-mask mandates. He considers himself a pro-medical freedom candidate in the Kenton County field. He's also anti-health department. He wants more local control over the health system. He thinks it provides more transparency, more accountability. He also wants county board officials to be elected. For example, say you're on the library board, he'd like them to be elected and not appointed by an outside source. Another thing we're looking at, and this one has been keyed in across the state, is the race between incumbent Kenton County Clerk Gabe Summey, as well as his challenger, Danny Whitaker. Now, Danny Whitaker, his main campaign point has been allegations of election fraud. He says there's been election fraud within Kenton County. He's asserted it on multiple occasions on his campaign website. And Gabe Summey, when I talked to her in April, she said there was no such evidence for any kind of election fraud in Kenton County. Summey, of course, as the Kenton County clerk, has to look over and preside over the elections along with the Kenton County Elections Board. So Whitaker has really made that his main campaign sticking point. Summey says there's no election fraud within Kenton County. She endorsed the Kenton County election system, saying it's one of the most solid and secure election systems within the state of Kentucky. Kenton County, of course, is the third largest county by population within the state of Kentucky. Whitaker has been endorsed and spoken at events for the Kentucky Liberty Party candidates, as Mark was saying earlier. So that's a race to keep an eye on. Kentucky Secretary of State Michael Adams has also said that there is no evidence for election fraud within the state of Kentucky. The other races, like Caitlin said, there is a constable primary tonight. We're not paying attention to that as much, but we will give you an update when we get those results in. We have a race between Darlene Plummer and Michael Constantino, a realtor. That's for property valuation administrator. Now, Darlene Plummer, she first was elected in 2014. She has been in that office ever since. She's worked in the office for the past 20 years. She's seeking incumbency. She thinks she's done a good job. Michael Constantino, however, is challenging her from the right. Michael Constantino says that the office should provide more transparency to the public. He wants to update the mapping systems for Kenton County. He wants the website to be more accessible. He also says he wants it to be more user-friendly. So Michael Constantino is challenging Darlene Plummer in the Kenton County Property Valuation Administrator race. And the last one, and this one is pretty unique, I have to say, Mark Fields, the incumbent, is getting challenged by Steve Larson for the Kenton County Jailer position. Now, Mark Fields, he was appointed in 2020 by Chris Knockelman, the judge executive of Kenton County, upon longtime jailer Terry Carl's pending retirement. He announced he was going to retire, and Fields was appointed and slid into that position. Now, Larson, a former Kenton County corrections officer who is challenging Mark Fields, actually worked at the Kenton County Detention Center. He was fired by Fields because he struck an inmate 4 times with a closed fist. Now, the race is heating up, and we will see how the results go. But Michael and Mark, that's the races I'm looking at tonight. Back to you guys.
Back reporting live from the Kenton County Government Building in Covington. And also our thanks to contributor Jason Fennell, who is there helping Kenton Hornbeck out as we gather numbers from those Kenton County races. Some very interesting dynamics emerging from the largest county in this region, 3rd largest county in the state. I always think it must be odd, Mark, for the county clerk who runs the elections in the years that he or she finds themselves on the ballot. That is certainly the case for Gabriel Summey, facing a challenge from a candidate similar to the other ones that you've described. Gabe Summey, a longtime incumbent and facing Danny Whitaker in this race. Danny Whitaker is one of those believers in the big lie, election fraud, and that sort of thing. So a race to watch.
Yeah, absolutely, Michael. I think that it's going to be really interesting to see how it turns out. I've done some reporting on Danny and the company and the Liberty Group in Northern Kentucky. I attended an event with Douglas Franks, and that group says that election fraud happened. It will be, I know that the Secretary of State, they're looking at that too, because if a candidate were to win in that office, what changes would he make? And yeah, we'll see how it turns out.
We certainly will. They can never seem to explain how the Republican votes, including former President Trump, did so well in Kentucky while also alleging that the election was stolen. So it's been hard to watch them try to reconcile that, but we'll see how their message plays out tonight as the results come in, which we are still waiting for. A reminder that it could be a slow night for reporting. We won't have that trickle out, apparently, as we've had in years past. We might end up with the big lump of votes towards the end of the evening, but we'll be with you the entire time right here on linknky.com. If you go to the website, if you're watching us on Facebook now, go to the website and you can watch this video there while also seeing the numbers for all of the races in Northern Kentucky as they come in. Our thanks to our Megan Goth, our managing editor here, and our chief executive officer, Lacey Starling, who is also here crunching numbers for us this evening. So we've checked in with Boone, we've checked in with Kenton. Now let's go to the east side of the Licking River, where we find our Haley Parnell in Newport at the Campbell County Government Building. Good evening, Haley. What are you seeing right now in Newport?
Thank you, Michael. While I have no numbers to report on, the room behind me, as you can see, is starting to fill up. I have quite a few of my candidates here with me this evening. I have Judge Pendry, the incumbent for Judge Executive, over to my right. His challenger, Anna Zinkon, is also here with me. Brian Painter is the incumbent for County Commissioner, and he is also here. Jim Daly is behind me. He is the incumbent for Jailer. He is also in the room. There are some Newport City Commissioner also in the room. So while I have no numbers, everybody is anticipating and waiting patiently. So the races that we are focusing on here tonight in Campbell County, I would say, are the Judge Executive race, the County Commissioner race, District 1, and Jailer. We will be also looking at the Family Court Judge race, and then at the city level, the Newport City Commissioner race. So as I mentioned, incumbent Steve Pendry is here tonight. He has been in office since 1998. He seeks his 7th consecutive term tonight. That would put him in office for 28 years. His challenger, Anna Zinkon, faced him back in 2018. We also have, as I said, Brian Painter in the room. His challenger is Dave Fisher. They also met back in 2018. And then at the Jailer level, we have Jim Daly, and we have Billy Fuller, and we have Noah Schulteis. Now, Noah Schulteis and Billy Fuller have both served as deputy jailers at the Campbell County Detention Center. At the Family Court Judge race, we have no incumbent. Incumbent Richard Wose is not seeking re-election. Brenda Bonecutter, Abigail Volker, and Andrea Janovic are looking to take that position tonight. At the Newport Commission level, we have 10 candidates competing for 4 seats in November. 8 of them will advance to the November general election. Now, while some of the races do have a general election, a lot of the races tonight are seeking a renomination, but they will not have a Democratic challenger in November. So the Judge Executive race has no Democratic challenger, as well as the Jailer race. But the County Commissioner race does have a Democratic challenger. Melissa Whalen will face them in November. And that's...
Thank you, Haley, for reporting from Newport. All 3 counties here in Northern Kentucky busy this evening. A lot of Republican primaries for voters to consider if you are a registered Republican. It's interesting that both in Kenton and Campbell counties, the jailers who are currently serving are facing challengers who used to work at the jails. So we'll keep an eye on those races throughout the evening. You are watching live coverage of the primary election 2022 from Link NKY. I'm Michael Monks alongside Mark Payne, and we've got our reporters out in the field. Caitlin Gebbe is in Boone County, Kenton Hornbeck is in Kenton County, and Haley Parnell is in Campbell County. And we will continue to check in with them throughout the evening. We're also crunching numbers right here in the studio. We will update that scroll you're looking at as soon as we have something to put in. So if you're just joining us, again, the Commonwealth of Kentucky has new software it's using this year to tabulate these results. So it's been expected that the results will be a little slower to report. And so many people are eager to get numbers that I'm sure they're tuning into us, but they're also blowing up the Secretary of State's website, which was down at last check. And we are going to give you the numbers as soon as we have the numbers. Go to linknky.com. You can watch this video there while also seeing a list of all of the local races and the results as we get them. Circling back to where we were at the top of the show, Mark, we're really keeping an eye on some races more than others. It's only natural during an election cycle that some races are more competitive than others. Other results may be more easily anticipated before the final results even come in. But among those tightly contested races are a couple of incumbent legislators in the region who are facing challengers, and they include incumbent Representative Adam Koenig, who is challenged by Erlanger City Councilman Steve Doan this evening, and incumbent Republican Ed Massey out of Hebron, who faces challenger Steve Rawlings, both very tight races.
Yeah, they're very tight races, and it will be interesting to see if these incumbents were to be defeated, Michael. It might not necessarily change up the makeup of the House. There are other races from Liberty candidates across the state of Kentucky, but the Northern Kentucky Republicans have a pretty good stronghold on chairs in the House. And so Representative Koenig is the chair of the Licensing Occupations Committee. Ed Massey's the chair of the Judiciary. And so if they were to lose those races, it would affect those committees, and it would affect some things in the House. So it'll be interesting to see how they play out. At no other time in history have Northern Kentucky legislators held so many chairs in the House. And if these incumbents were to lose, it would change that.
This is something that some Northern Kentucky proponents, maybe out of the Chamber of Commerce, maybe from other civic interest groups, have pushed for recent years. You know, the battle cry is Northern Kentucky does not get its fair share from Frankfort. And some would argue that that has changed in recent years with chairmanships held by people like Representative Sal Santoro out of Union, Adam Koenig out of Erlanger. We've seen in the Senate, Chris McDaniel and Will Schroeder also rise in prominence in that particular chamber. So what you're saying is if any of these folks like Koenig or Massey or Santoro, who also faces a challenge, and Marianne Proctor this evening, should lose, that influence could be diminished.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if they lose those chair seats, it would affect Northern Kentucky's influence. And there have been those times where folks have said Northern Kentucky doesn't get its fair share. But I think after this legislative session, Northern Kentucky got a lot of money from infrastructure. We got a lot of money for other stuff, particularly the Brent Spence Bridge. And Representative Santoro in the 60th District, who's facing off against Marianne Proctor, he was very instrumental in that. He chairs the subcommittee on transportation. He was very instrumental on he sponsored House Bill 242, which is the transportation portion of the House's budget. And so he brought a lot of money back. All those legislators did. And so if they were to be voted out, it would change the makeup of the House big time.
Regardless of the fate of those incumbents, there will be new faces sent from Northern Kentucky to Frankfort in the next legislative cycle, and that's because of a few open seats, and one of which is a redistricted seat that is new to our area. That is Senate District 20. It used to be kind of outside of the Louisville area, and it's been shifted up this way to include the southern half of Boone County in a large district that stretches southward all the way to Franklin County, where Frankfort is. And there are 4 candidates seeking that office, a couple from Boone County, a couple from Franklin County. From Boone County, we have former longtime lawmaker Jay Williams, who's looking to get back into the game, and local Republican activist Phyllis Sparks. They are also in the field with Franklin County Republicans Kalen Studler and Mike Templeman. So we're keeping an eye on that open seat, as well as House District 68. That is the seat currently held by Republican Joe Fisher out of Fort Thomas, who is running for the Kentucky Supreme Court against incumbent Michelle Keller. That race will happen in November. But tonight, we are watching Mike Kleins, Paul Cloker, and Myrna Eads fight it out for the Republican nomination in House District 68. Open seat also, Senate District 24, situated in Campbell County, Pendleton County, and Bracken County, currently occupied by Will Schroeder, who is not seeking re-election. And instead, that district will be represented by someone else moving forward. The three candidates looking to represent the Republican Party on the ballot in that one include Shelley Funky Frohmeyer, Chris Robinson, and Kelly, what's her name?
Jones.
Yep. Not Kelly Jones. We've got that wrong. It's Jessica Neal. My apologies for that, Jessica Neal. Kelly Jones is the Democrat who is running in the House District 68 race
correct.
Coming up in November. Apologize for that. You're watching live election coverage from Link NKY. Check us out at linknky.com. You can watch this video there if you're currently watching it on Facebook. And on the website, you will not only see the video, you'll see the list of all the races, and we are punching in those numbers just as fast as they come in, which is certainly not as fast as you would probably like, certainly not as fast as we would like. We're going to check in with our reporters across Boone, Kenton, and Campbell counties again now to get an idea of what they're hearing about the tabulation of votes. Let's go back to Boone County now. That's where we find our Caitlin Gebbe in Burlington. Caitlin, let's talk a bit about the tabulation of results. What are you hearing inside the courthouse about the vote count?
Hey, Michael. So far, we haven't received any returns yet, but Boone County has 64 precincts to work through. Throughout the day, we've heard that some precincts have been busier than others, while some may have even had some voting machine issues. I got a notification on social media. Someone on the Boone County Democratic Party Facebook page posted that at one of the locations, they had problems with the digital voting machines and had to fill out a physical ballot. That physical ballot is then taken and escorted by a poll worker upstairs at that particular location to be inserted into a secure ballot box. That is typical procedure when the machines that we use now in election days are failing or not working properly. So those paper ballots are always there as a backup. I heard through Chet Hand on his campaign page, keeping in mind that Chet Hand is also the Boone County Republican Party chair. He posted on his Facebook page that the United Methodist Church in Florence ran out of those paper ballots. They ran out of paper ballots. He said that they were provided about 50, which just wasn't enough. They were awaiting more. Some people maybe arrived and then left without voting, and he encouraged them to go back and cast their ballots. So whether or not that impacts tonight's results, we'll see. As you said, we want those election returns as quickly as we can get them, but that Secretary of State site is still down, and here on the ground, we haven't received any physical results yet, but we do have two methods of getting those, both physically from the people who are tabulating the votes and also online. So we have the election results on our website. You can also see that at the bottom of your screen, and we're updating that as quickly as we can get them. One of the other items I want to touch on about election returns is, although some places have been busy, this is a year in which we don't have a governor's race. This is a non-presidential election and primary year, and so we don't typically see a really high voter turnout. But there are some races that have driven people to the polls, maybe in higher numbers than they would for other midterm primaries. One of the other items I want to touch on is that we're waiting for these results here in the courthouse. We also have Tricia Shire on hand, who is getting those physical results, and she's, as they come in, if that website's not updated, she's going to run those physical copies to me in the room here. I'm in the fiscal courtroom for Boone County, and so we're going to have those physical copies as soon as they are possibly available.
For that report out of Burlington, I want to note that while we are waiting for most races to report any numbers, I did see some results across our screen down here at the bottom and also online at linknky.com from that 20th Senate District race. And it's very few votes that are coming in. These might even be just the absentees that are counted first. And I don't know which county. That's a large district now that stretches from southern Boone down to Franklin County. It's new to our area. It was redistricted up here. It's an open seat. But right now, Kaylin Studler is the leader in that race with 113 votes. I saw scroll across the screen. I saw 82 votes for Jay Williams, 81 votes for, 82 votes for Mike Templeman, 81 votes for Jay Williams, and 69 votes for Phyllis Sparks. So in the very early returns from Senate District 20, the two Franklin County candidates are leading the two Boone County candidates, but we shall see how that develops over the course of the evening. It's still very early, and we know that results will be coming out more slowly than usual due to new software created by the Commonwealth of Kentucky for the purpose of election results. Secretary of State website sounds like it's still down.
It sounds like it. And it's interesting to see some of those results in the 20th district. Kaylin Studler might be the most blue-collar candidate of all those. When we held our forum, he mentioned that he might be, he's a candidate that doesn't have a college degree, but he's worked himself up to where he's a real estate agent now. And it will be really interesting to see how those turn out. And kind of commenting on what Caitlin said out in Boone County. It's not a gubernatorial election year. It's not a presidential election year. But some would argue that these elections matter more locally than some of those larger elections. And as a region that's getting this new 20th district, it will be interesting to see what candidate is ultimately wins, because they will have to represent a district that stretches all the way from Franklin County, which is about an hour and a half away, all the way up to southern Boone and Kenton counties.
The result of redistricting is always some very strangely concocted districts, but it speaks to the growth of Boone County, long represented only by John Schickel in District 11 for many years. He's not on the ballot this year. His cycle comes up next time around, but now there will be two state senators representing Boone. It's just that this other state senator will be representing a lot of other counties as well. We'll keep an eye on that at linknky.com. This video, if you're watching on Facebook, it is embedded on our website along with the results as we get them. Let's go to Covington now. Kenton Hornbeck is at the Kenton County Government Center. Kenton, tell us what you're hearing about the way votes are being tabulated right now.
Well, Mark, Michael, we really haven't heard anything new. There's still 0 votes counted. I've been frequently refreshing my phone here. We have the PDF on the Kenton County Clerk's website. We haven't seen anything new yet. But like you guys were saying, it's been a quite unusual election for tabulation of votes. So normally you would get the results a lot quicker, but due to the new software, as Mark was saying, that's going to be a lot different. Now, we've sent our colleague Jason Fennell downstairs. We're in the second floor of the Kenton County Fiscal Court chambers. He's now looking for paper results to see if they have any. But as far as the official results online, we haven't seen anything yet. It still says 0 if you refresh the page at the Kenton County Clerk's website. Now, we do know that usually the screen you see behind me here is streaming a live stream of the vote tabulations. Now, we do not have that due to the new laws and regulations and whatnot of the state of Kentucky. So while other broadcasts in years past might have featured a live stream in the background, we do not have that this year. But if I hear anything else, I'll keep you guys posted. Like I said, I've been continuously refreshing the page and have not seen anything new. So back to you guys.
Kenton, we do appreciate that report from Covington. We just received word from our CEO, Lacey Starling, who is here in the office helping us crunch numbers today, which we appreciate very much, alongside our managing editor, Megan Goff. The Secretary of State website is apparently back up.
It sounds like it.
So if our viewers go and crash it again because we've made that announcement, we apologize. But right now, the Secretary of State website had been down. A lot of people looking to that for results today, including us for several races at the state level. And we will continue to wait, apparently, because though it's back up, there aren't any results on there. So what we're seeing results from right now are the 4th District congressional primary. Incumbent Thomas Massie expected to easily be renominated for that, and the early returns indicate that to be the case. We're also seeing some early results from Senate District 20, but that is a district that includes counties south of here, so we don't have reporters in those courthouses, so we're not sure where those votes have come from yet. We'll continue to watch. You're watching live primary election coverage from Link NKY. Go to linknky.com if you're watching us on Facebook. You can see this video there embedded on the site, as well as a long list of all of the races today and the votes as they come in, when they come in. It is a slow crawl this evening. Polls closed in the Eastern time zone over an hour ago now, and we still don't have a whole lot to tell you. But we do have some of our finest out in the field. You've heard from Caitlin Gebbe in Boone County, Kenton Hornbeck in Kenton County. Let's go to the east side of the Licking River now. That's where we find our Haley Parnell in Newport at the Campbell County Government Building. Haley, are they counting ballots in Campbell yet?
Thanks, Michael. So as you can see, I do have results scrolling through my screen, unlike Kenton over in Kenton County. My contributor, Robin G., is working on getting me those numbers, so I don't have exact numbers for you yet, but they are coming in. Campbell County Clerk Jim Larson has been popping in frequently, giving us updates. He did say that 3-day, 6-day, and absentee ballots are coming in. So I am just waiting on those numbers, Michael.
Thank you, Haley. We appreciate that report from Newport. We will be checking in with our reporters on the ground throughout the evening. It's possible, Mark, that when we start to get results, it will be the results. It will be the release of all of the tabulations. I believe what we just heard was from Haley that the early voting and the absentee voting is what will be counted first. So that is probably what we're seeing in some of these races, the 4th Congressional District, the 20th State Senate District, and of course the U.S. Senate race. We're seeing some results in the Rand Paul on the Republican side, Charles Booker on the Democratic side.
Yep, those two candidates are expected to win their primaries. Charles Booker on the Democratic side, Rand Paul on the Republican side. It will be interesting to see how that race, if both those candidates do move forward, how it plays out in the general election. Rand Paul is outraising Charles Booker. I believe it was 3-1 the last I checked. It's a lot of money. And up here in the 4th Congressional District, and it looks like Representative Thomas Massie is leading. When I talked to Representative Massie when he's campaigning out at Pee Wee's Place in Crescent Springs, which is also where he's holding his party tonight, I asked him why he's campaigning so hard in a district that he's so steadily won over the years, and he said, we're not taking it for granted. He does have some new counties as part of the congressional redistricting throughout the state, and he was going down and stumping in Nelson County, which was a new county for him, but he seems like he's working hard to get reelected, and it looks like those numbers are returning in his favor so far.
Coveted endorsement from former President Donald Trump, and of course President Trump back in 2020 in regards to COVID relief legislation that Thomas Massie voted against. President Trump at the time called Massie a third-rate grandstander, to which Thomas Massie replied, come on, I'm at least second-rate. And my, how the years have changed these two gentlemen, because President Trump has endorsed Massie after just a couple of years ago asking that he be kicked out of the Republican Party.
Sure, and it's important to note that Trump, former President Donald Trump, has endorsed all Republican congressional candidates throughout Kentucky. So it's not just Representative Massie, but that particular endorsement was really interesting. Massie, of course, is going to play lighthearted. He is on Twitter a lot. Obviously, he's very outspoken on Twitter, but he's always going to, be lighthearted with any jabs that are given to him.
He's not effective at getting legislation adopted by the rest of Congress, but he is good at getting retweets, and that is often just as valuable in politics these days as actual legislation. There's a Democrat lying in wait in this race. His name is Matt Lehman, an entrepreneur who lives in Newport. I've spoken with him. I'm wondering, Mark, what we know about this race moving forward, since it's probably going to be Thomas Massie renominated by the Republicans again to face Matt Lehman in the Democratic Party. We've got the Charles Booker nomination for the U.S. Senate race for the Democrats, and here locally in the 4th Congressional District, Matt Lehman. Are we seeing, after such another poor field of Democratic candidates in the lower offices, do we see any indication that local Democrats are hoping to build off of those two campaigns moving forward at the local level?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's likely, if I had to guess, that Representative Massey and Senator Rand Paul would win re-election even in the general election. But I think what the Democratic Party is hoping in Kentucky is that both candidates, Charles Booker and candidate Matt Lehman up here in northern Kentucky, would raise money and start building some infrastructure up here for the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party right now in Kentucky is lacking in infrastructure. They simply just don't have a lot of people involved in the Kentucky Democratic Party. And so I think that they're banking on those two candidates turning out well, raising money, and helping to build an infrastructure for future campaigns.
So many local elections will be determined today in the Republican primary, with no Democratic challengers waiting tonight's winners in the November general election. I'm Michael Monks alongside Mark Payne. This is Link NKY's live coverage of that primary election here in 2022. Not a lot of numbers to report for you yet at the local level. Some of the races that involve multiple counties, particularly counties that aren't our counties, are starting to trickle some numbers out. We are keeping a tight eye on what's going on at the 3 local courthouses and monitoring the Secretary of State website, as well as other organizations that might be reporting numbers. I tell you, we're all in the same boat right now, waiting and waiting and waiting. And it is possible that the first time we see any numbers of substance, it will be the final tally of votes. And this is all due to new software that was implemented in the Commonwealth by the Commonwealth. They created this themselves, and so it has changed the way that local clerks are reporting their numbers, and that is why we are not getting that steady report throughout the evening, where you like to watch the horse race on a night like this if you're a candidate, if you're into politics, or if you're just a voter wondering who might be representing you in the future. Mark Payne and I will be with you throughout the evening as these results slowly trickle in, possibly building up to one big drop of votes later in the evening. We're also joined by 3 of our reporters across the region at local courthouses, with some of our contributors on the ground gathering numbers as soon as they are available. So we'll talk to those reporters now to get an indication of the races that people are looking at. Back to Burlington, Boone County, that's where we find our Caitlin Gebbe. The judge executive, first elected in 1998 there in Boone County. His name is Gary Moore. He has managed to be reelected every 4 years since. He faces another challenge this year, but it seems, Caitlin, that his race isn't as competitive as one for county commissioner. Talk a bit about.
Yeah, so one of the races that we have been looking at is the race between incumbent candidate Gary Moore and the candidate vying for his seat as judge executive, Timothy Johnson. A little bit about Judge Moore. You know, he served as a public official for over 24 years. He has served as long as Steve Pendry in Campbell County. Both of them are seeking re-election in this primary. He says he's running again to see projects like the Double Diamond interchange at the interstate and Richwood Road. Again, people familiar with the community know exactly what that's like. A lot of construction there, a lot of traffic chaos happening as that area grows and develops, and that Double Diamond interchange is designed to sustain more traffic and try to smooth things out. He also wants to see projects like the fiber optic internet upgrade that's being done all across Boone County. He said he's seeking re-election because he wants to see that completed too. And he says he's still enjoying coming to work every day. One of the things that he mentioned in our interview prior to the primary election is that, you know, his family is in Boone County, and he wants to lay the groundwork to hand to the next generation a positive community, and one that he's leaving better than he found it. And his challenger, Timothy Johnson, He has run a comparatively quiet campaign, according to the Kentucky election finance website. He hasn't reported any funds raised for his campaign. That could also mean that he is funding his own campaign. We do see that sometimes for candidates challenging incumbents. And compared to Gary Moore's, he has raised over $100,000 in his campaign, which he claims on the finance website, but he has spent roughly $31,000 on that campaign, according to the most recent reports. So Moore's challenger, Timothy Johnson, he's never run for public office. He's a newcomer to the political field. I talked to some Boone County Republicans. They're not really familiar with him either. He doesn't have an official campaign page necessarily, but what he has told me through emails is that he was inspired to run over a land dispute between himself and the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet. This was dealing, again, with that Richwood Road and Double Diamond Interchange project that's going on. The Transportation Cabinet wanted to issue some easements in the area. There was a disagreement about the amounts the land was valued at that they wanted to offer for those easements. They ended up in a back and forth battle that ultimately went to court and was recently settled earlier this month. Johnson emailed me to tell me that the result of that court case was just over $250,000 for the different parcels of land that he shares ownership of in that area. But that whole dispute was why he wanted to pursue the office of judge executive. He said that he felt that it would give him answers and it would help prevent that from happening to anyone else in the community. He felt the process was really unfair, and it wasn't as transparent as he would have liked. And so that's what inspired him to put his name in the race for judge executive against incumbent candidate Gary Moore. Another thing that he has told me is that something that we're seeing with some county Republican races is that there's no Republicans really want to see an incumbent candidate go unchallenged. And so although Timothy Johnson hasn't necessarily had a very loud or upfront campaign, he is on the ballot to give voters who don't necessarily want to vote for Moore another option. And that was one of his goals that he said he was pursuing when he put his name on the ballot.
Caitlin, let me ask you this, because it does seem like Judge Executive Moore is not facing a tough challenge from the gentleman who is seeking to replace him. It does sound like a bit of a half-hearted campaign that resulted from a personal dispute with the local government. That's not the case for one of the 3 seats on the county commissioner side of the fiscal court, incumbent Charles Kenner facing an unusual challenge, and that is from the chairman of the Boone County Republican Party in Chet Hand, and this race has gotten nasty.
Yeah, throughout the campaigns for both commissioners, they have lobbed attacks at one another, most of them on social media, but some of them, they say, have been on the campaign trail. Both candidates have told me that in door-to-door campaigns, their opponent has told lies about them, whether it's to people that they know very well personally, sometimes friends or family, or people who are familiar with them in the Republican Party. And those were accusations going both ways between Kenner and Hand. A little bit about Charles Kenner as an incumbent. He's been in office on and off for a little over 16 years. His campaign has the reasons why he's running for re-election have been similar to Moore's. He says that he wants to see some projects that he saw the beginning of. He wants to see them come to fruition. And he also said that he wants to see improvements in public safety, particularly with the sheriff's office. He supports programs like the school resource officers. If you don't know what that is, those are officers designated by the sheriff's office to provide a level of security for local public schools. And also a degree of that job is to improve the relationship between students there and law enforcement officers so they can understand that they're people that they can trust, that they can go to when they are having problems, and again, provide that level of safety. So that's something that Kenner says that he supports and he wants to see more financial support for on the county level, which at a recent Boone County fiscal court meeting, it was a work session discussing the next year's budget. There is a proposal to increase the allotment for the sheriff's office by $5 million. So we know that if Charlie Kenner is reelected as Boone County Commissioner, that is something that he will be supporting. Now, on the flip side of that, Chet Hand, he came to Boone County with his family from Alaska. He moved from Alaska a couple years ago. He has recently assumed the role of leadership in Boone County Republican Party. He's the chairman there, and he works in risk prevention for Toyota here in Boone, and he's run a very conservative campaign and agenda. You know, obviously he's pro-life. He is campaigning on transparency in the county. He wants to see more transparency when it comes to how ordinances and zoning changes are decided, and he wants to increase that transparency so that we can see more community involvement. He feels like there could be improvements there, as well as just across the board. He wants to see more transparency from the county, which, granted to Judge Moore's tenure here, they have recently launched the Text My Gov program, which means that residents in Boone County can use their cell phones to directly communicate to Boone County government. Now, that might not necessarily check all the boxes for what Chet Hand wants to accomplish, if he were to be elected Boone County Commissioner, but it may be a start. Now, about the contentiousness of their race, as we mentioned before, you might not have heard if you weren't part of the broadcast.
Caitlin, we're going to just stop you for a moment, and we'll check back with you momentarily. I believe, Mark, that we're getting some numbers from Kenton County. Stand by, Caitlin. We'll come back to you. Let's go now to Covington, where Kenton Hornbeck is standing by at the Kenton County Government Building. Kenton, I understand that we might be getting some early results out of Kenton County. What are you hearing?
Michael, Mark, yes, finally some exciting news we have here in Covington. So I do have some results in front of me. First things first, what am I noticing here? It says Gabrielle Summey is winning with 74% of the vote right now. Gabe Summey doing very well. She is beating Danny Whitaker, and Gabe Summey in the vote total here has 1,670 votes counted so far, while Danny Whitaker has only 583. So it looks like a very strong showing from the county clerk thus far. Now for the jailer, we have Mark Fields out in front with 1,061 votes. That's 56% of the total votes cast so far, Michael, Mark. And Steve Larson only has 821 votes. He's sitting at 43.62%. For County Commissioner, District 2, again, this is longtime incumbent John Dowd. He's facing Tony Schmiotti. Dowd is up 63% to 36.99%. Now, Dowd has 1,281 votes, while Schmiotti has 752. Again, very strong showings from the incumbents here in Kenton County. Now, when we go to state representative races, I know you guys are interested in this. We have Representative Adam Koenig with 65 total votes this far. Steve Doan with 57. Not many counted so far in the congressional races, but we will keep you updated here. For Property Valuation Administrator, Darlene Plummer is up 1,458 votes to 525 for Michael Constantino. That's cast so far. Darlene Plummer has 73.52% of the vote, while Michael Constantino has 26.48%. So, like we were saying, in Kenton County, the incumbents have performed very strong. If these results hold, it's going to be a nice, solid victory for the Kenton County Republican Party establishment. When we look nationally, Michael, Mark, we see that Claire Worth is really not performing as well as people might have expected. Thomas Massey has 1,666 votes. That's 74.91% of the vote counted so far. Rand Paul, of course, he has a commanding lead in the United States Senate race. He has 1,949 votes counted.
Kenton, We'll stop you there for now. We appreciate this update, and we'll talk a bit later on when we get more numbers out of Kenton County. Thank you for that report. Mark Payne and Michael Monk's here with you for NKY's live election coverage. As the primary results come in, I do want to note quickly, as Kenton was saying those numbers for the 4th Congressional District race and the U.S. Senate primary, that those are just the numbers in those races from Kenton County. Obviously, the 4th District is larger than Kenton, and the U.S. Senate primary is statewide. Our CEO, Lacey Starling, who is crunching numbers over there for us, tells us that the AP has called the Republican primary in the U.S. Senate race for Rand Paul, who was renominated, and also the Democratic primary for Charles Booker, who will face Rand Paul in the November election this year. But what stood out to me in Kenton's report is that what we've been hearing as the establishment Republicans here, the incumbents in county-wide offices, are currently, as the early returns come in, staving off these challengers. And it's important to note that Kenton County's Republican Party is the only one that was able to hold off an insurgency. The Campbell County GOP, the Boone County GOP, both taken over by outsiders who wanted to change the direction of the party. Kenton County was able to stop that, and right now their candidates are holding up.
Yeah, absolutely. The results so far, one race that's particularly interesting to me, even though a lot of votes haven't came in, is the Representative Koenig and Stephen Doan race.
And again, those are just Kenton County numbers. This is a district that is in Kenton County and Boone County along the Dixie Highway corridor.
Correct.
But to hear the early results showing Adam Koenig with, I believe, 65 votes and Steve Doan with 57 votes, obviously
Correct.
extraordinarily early in the returns on that particular race, but we might be in for a good one.
Yeah, I think that race is going to be interesting to follow. As we mentioned earlier, it has gotten nasty in the election season with Stephen Doan's campaign running some pretty, I'd say, rough ads against Representative Koenig, just calling him a liberal, things like that.
You can't insult a Republican more than by calling them a liberal.
I don't think so. Yeah.
And Adam Koenig was first elected in 2006. He's held this seat for a long time and now faces a solid challenge from Erlanger City Councilman Steve Doan. We'll keep an eye on that race and the rest of them. We are updating the ticker that you see right now. Some early numbers coming in from Campbell County as well. I think we should go to Newport and hear what Haley Parnell has to say to see if we've got the scoop here. To Newport now. Haley Parnell is standing by at the Campbell County Government Building. Haley, I'm seeing some numbers on our ticker from Campbell. What are you seeing?
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Michael. Bear with me while I read results off of my phone. I have results for Judge Executive race, Jailer Commissioner, and Newport City Commissioner. I don't have the Family Court Judge yet. But what I am seeing on the Judge Executive side of things, for absentee voting, Pendry is up 62 to 37% on Zincon. For early voting, Pendry is up 65% to 34% versus Challenger Zincon. And election day voting, Pendry is up 66% versus 33% for election day voting. Now looking at the Jailer race, absentee voting, we have Daly up 64%. Billy Fuller is at 24% and Noah Schulteis is at 11%. For early voting, again, Daly is up 62% to a 27% for Billy Fuller and a 8% for Noah Schulteis. For election day voting, Daly is up with that as well, 62% to 22% for Billy Fuller and 14% for Noah Schulteis. Looking at the county commissioner race, we're seeing a little bit of a different story here. Painter is up in absentee voting 61% to 38%. He is also up in early voting 57% to 42% on Dave Fisher, but he is down 47% to a 52% from Dave Fisher on election day voting. For the Newport City Commissioner race, I have numbers here on a piece of paper in front of me. And it appears that, let's see here, incumbent Beth Fennell is up on election day voting 418. And again, there are about 10 candidates on this piece of paper. The only one that appears to be close to her with another 452 number is Recton. He is also an incumbent, Ken Recton. And I believe, yeah, I do not have results for the family court judge race yet.
For the rest of the candidates, Haley, can you give us an indication of where the rest of the candidates stand in that Newport City Commission race? It sounds like Beth Fennell and Ken Recton, who are both incumbents, are leading the pack right now. There are two open seats in the November election. All 4 seats, of course, technically up for election, but we'd be curious to know who's showing a strong campaign right now in the primary as we start to look toward the fall.
Yes, so their challengers, Davis is up 321 votes. The other candidates that are in the 300 so far are Smith Morrow and Redwanski is at 379. So that is a tight race there with the incumbents. Megerly is at 207 on election day results. Living Good is at 131. Capella is at 168. Santini is at 115, and this is all election day votes, by the way. Henry is at 258, and that should be all of them. And I do have results for the family court judge in front of me as well now, as Robin G hands me numbers. So again, election day results is what I'm reading. Volker is in the lead so far with 1,147 votes. Janovic is at 594 and Bonecutter is at 831. So again, Volker is in the lead on that with Bonecutter closely behind and Janovic following.
For that latest report from Newport. Very interesting returns there on the Newport Commission side, Mark. Kind of a historic year for the Newport City Commission because there will be fewer Pelusos. Really, for the first time, probably in a couple of generations, on the Newport City Commission. Both former Mayor Jerry Peluso, who decided to run for City Commission last time after being term limited as mayor, has been on there since the 80s. His cousin, Frank Peluso, the son of the former mayor, Johnny TV Peluso, has been on the commission for a long time as well. Both Pelusos opting not to run for re-election this year. That creates 2 open seats. 2 incumbents are seeking re-election, but they have to earn that re-election. You could see 4 new faces on the commission this coming November, but those 2 incumbents are leading the pack right now, and it sounds like the other contenders are Jolie Smith Morrow, Mr. Davis, and Mike Redwanski right now. 8 of those 10 candidates will advance to the November election. 2 will be eliminated today, and then in November, those 8 will compete for those 4 seats. That family court judge race, it looks like Abigail Volker is leading in Campbell County right now, up by a few hundred votes over Brenda Bonecutter, with Andrea Janovich trailing in 3rd. I think we're also getting some numbers right now out of Boone County, so we should go back to Burlington, where we find our Caitlin Gebbe at the Boone County Courthouse being assisted by our Tricia Shire. Caitlin, I'm hearing there are some numbers coming in. What are you seeing?
Hey, Michael. Yeah, that's right. We are seeing just some numbers come in. I have some results from precinct Burlington 4, which is one of Boone County's more central precincts. Of course, Burlington is the county seat, so you will have a lot of voters in this section. What we're seeing right now is between the Steve Rawlings and Ed Massey race, we have Steve Rawlings with 211 votes, Massey with 89. In the local PVA race, we have Jonathan Brown with 183 votes to Jared Bethel's 90 votes. In the judge executive race, some results that surprised me between incumbent candidate Gary Moore. He has 166 votes and Johnson has 129. So there's a very slim margin between those 2. And then in our Boone County Commissioner race for District 2, keeping in mind that all Boone County residents can vote in this commission race, whether or not they are directly represented by the 2nd District of Boone County. Chet Hand has received 191 votes to incumbent candidate Charlie Kenner's 110 votes. So with one precinct reporting, we have Hand in the lead in his race. We have Moore by a narrow lead in his race as well. We have Jonathan Brown in the lead in his race, and Rawlings is leading in his race as well. And now it's important to note that Rawlings and Hand are running somewhat together. Rawlings and Hand have been at events together. Rawlings has endorsed Hand, and you'll see some advertisements on his campaign websites with the two together. Another thing I want to point out is some of the folks who told me about the vote tabulation is that they are having a hard time uploading the results to the website. Now, there are 64 precincts in Boone County, and they told me that if they had to guess, about 60 of those 64 precincts have brought their results back. Now, people who live very close to precinct locations, voting locations, you should know that those voting locations have to post the results on the door before they leave to hand over those election ballots. And so what campaigns will do is they'll have runners go to each of those locations to get a picture, get those results, and send them into their candidates so they might know where they stand before the results come here to the courthouse. We're also seeing continued problems with that new software. They're, again, having issues uploading information to the state's website, and before it's uploaded to the state's website, we can't see it on the local level. So some of the issues that we talked about early in the broadcast are coming through. We are seeing them, but because we're here in person in the courthouse, we are getting some of those results, and so we will keep you posted as they come in.
That report out of Burlington. We appreciate it. Just one precinct reporting there, but looks like bad news in that one precinct for incumbent state representative Ed Massey of Hebron, trailing heavily in that one precinct against challenger Steve Rawlings. I'm sure he's hoping right now that that's an outlier.
Sure, I think that he's definitely hoping that that's an outlier. And that will be really interesting. As Caitlin mentioned, Chet Hand and Steve Rawlings campaigned together. They are the two Liberty candidates from that area. They seem to have gained a really strong hold in the Republican Party out there. I know that Chet Hand is now the chairman of the Boone County Republican Party, and a similar takeover happened in Campbell County, but I'm sure that Representative Massey's maybe sweating out there a little bit, Michael.
And so is Chet Hand's opponent, incumbent County Commissioner Charlie Kenner. If this one precinct is any indication of things to come, it could be a long night for Charles Kenner and a good night for Chet Hand, the GOP chairman in Boone County, who is trying to unseat a fellow Republican on the Boone County Fiscal Court. You are watching live primary election coverage from Link NKY. We are updating the numbers on our website, linknky.com. If you're watching us on Facebook tonight, you can go to linknky.com. This video is also on the same page as all of our numbers, so go there and check it out. We're updating it as fast as we can. We're also updating this ticker as fast as we can, so you might hear us say some numbers before we're able to get those the transcript onto the ticker, but we are moving as quickly as possible. Speaking of numbers, we've got some new numbers. So this is out of the 24th Senate District. This is an open Senate seat. Republican Will Schroeder not seeking re-election. We are told that 22% of the precincts are reporting from this district out of Campbell, Pendleton, and Bracken counties. And right now, Shelley Funky Frohmeyer and Jessica Neal are tied with about 36% of the vote. I don't have the raw vote numbers, but as a percent of the vote, with 22% of the precincts in, 36% for Frohmeyer and Neal. Of course, Chris Robinson is also in that race as well. Tight race in the 24th district. Looks like the ladies in that race are outpacing the gentlemen right now.
Yeah, and Jessica Neal, it should be noted, is a Liberty candidate. And so those Liberty candidates seem like they're doing well. Early on, Shelley Funky Frohmeyer is more of a traditional Republican, but yeah, those are definitely interesting numbers. And it's important to know that the 24th District now has a couple of small precincts in Kenton County as well, Michael. It will be interesting to see if a Liberty candidate were to make it into the Senate. It wouldn't necessarily change the makeup, but it would allow some other senators. So Senator Adrienne Southworth is considered a Liberty candidate. And when she goes to file motions on the floor, she's often not seconded. And so those motions end up dying really quickly. But if another Liberty senator were to get elected to the Senate, that could potentially allow Senator Southworth's motions to gain more ground, gain more steam in the Senate. So it'd be interesting to see how that changes the dynamic.
You spent time covering the entirety of the General Assembly this year, so you saw a lot of these dynamics play out. And we're talking about a legislature that is dominated by Republicans. So when you say a Republican senator gets up, tries to make a motion that no one seconds, that's other Republicans who are ignoring the request.
Correct. There's 30 Republicans and 8 Democrats in the Senate currently. Senator Adrienne Southworth would be considered maybe the only Liberty Republican. And so some of these candidates are attempting to push that Republicanism a little bit farther right. There's this kind of divide amongst the Republican Party, and that's playing out not just in northern Kentucky, but statewide. If you look kind of south of the Lexington, Senator Donald Douglas is facing a Liberty candidate in Andrew Cooper Ryder, and he would provide a similar dynamic that potential Senator Jessica Neal might make in the Senate, Michael.
I'm watching some Kenton County numbers go across our screen right now on that ticker. Darlene Plummer leading that Kenton County PVA race pretty comfortably right now. Gabriel Sumby, the incumbent county clerk, also up comfortably over challenger Danny Whitaker. We can check in with Kenton Hornbeck to get some of these latest numbers, but it looks like the incumbent candidates in Kenton County are faring better right now than some of their counterparts in Boone County. Let's go to Covington now. That's where Kenton Hornbeck is standing by. What's up, Kenton?
How's it going, fellas? Yes, we have gotten more results. So it's 7:17. The PDF was updated, and I want to draw the public's attention here to the jailer race. Now, like Michael was saying, the incumbents have performed very strong here so far in the early going, but the closest race so far in the primaries has been Mark Fields and Steve Larson, who are running for Kenton County Jailer. Now, the latest vote totals that I have on my screen here is Mark Fields up 1,762 votes to Steve Larson's 1,447 votes. Now, if you take a look at the percentages, it'll show about a 9-point gap. That's 54.91% to 45.09%. But you want to keep an eye on that as Gabe Summy keeps updating the results. It's a little closer than one might have expected. Now, as we go to the other primaries, we have John Dowd with a comfortable lead so far over Tony Schmiotti. John Dowd has 2,129 votes to Tony Schmiotti's 1,360 votes. That's 61 to 38%. John Dowd, of course, a longtime politician in the Kenton County area, he is up comfortably. We want to take a look back at the clerk's race. Gabe Summy with a commanding 2,853 to 1,006 vote lead over Danny Whitaker. Again, Gabe Summy is in charge of the elections here in Kenton County. She is the Kenton County clerk. Danny Whitaker is running on a platform mainly about election fraud. He's running on a platform about the big lie. Gabe Summy and others, such as Kentucky Secretary of State Michael Adams, have repeatedly said that there is no voter fraud in Kentucky. Kenton County is the third largest county in the state of Kentucky by population. So those charges that he's levied against her are serious. Now, of course, there is no evidence for any of those charges. It's an outside shot and an outside candidate, and he's trying to pick up more of the right-wing vote of the Kenton County Republican Party. But so far, Michael, Mark, the incumbents and the Kenton County Republican establishment have done really well. The closest race, again, is Mark Fields and Steve Larson. That's the one we're going to keep our eye on so far. And again, Darlene Plummer commanding lead over Michael Constantino in the property valuation administrator race, 2,453 votes to Constantino's 937. And really what we're seeing here is a strong performance from the incumbents. Back to you guys.
Hornbeck for that report in Covington. And as Kenton said, big night for the incumbents apparently in Kenton County. This was the county Republican Party that was able to stave off the insurgents who did try to do similar takeovers as we saw happen in Boone and Campbell County, where some activists wanted to take the party in a different direction and have the organization operate differently. It looks like it might be paying off for those candidates in Boone County where that happened. Right now we are seeing some challengers lead incumbents in a state legislative race and a county commission race, and we are seeing a similar outcome in the 24th district, which includes Campbell County. But in Kenton County, where the Republican Party was able to maintain its current organization status, the incumbents are apparently benefiting from that as well. So different dynamics in Kenton than in Campbell and Boone so far this hour. We'll continue to update. I want to note that the Kenton County Family Court primary, there are 3 candidates. This is nonpartisan, but because there are 3 candidates, one has to go. And right now, Terry King-Schoborg leads her 2 opponents pretty handily. You might have seen this scroll across on the ticker. She has 2,694 votes. Carl Knockelman is in second place right now, but a very distant second place with 1,019 votes. And of course, the controversial local attorney, Ben Dusing, has 494 votes, which is good for last place. Terry King-Schoborg putting on a strong performance right now, indicative of a possible strong performance in November to be the next family court judge from Kenton County. We do have some breaking news out of the Republican congressional primary. Mark Payne, what's up?
It looks like Thomas Massey has been declared the winner by the Associated Press, as is expected, Michael. He beat his challenger, Claire Worth, who was somewhat similar to him. She was trying to push the Republican Party even further right. I think it was a bit of a surprise that Claire Worth thought she was going to get Donald Trump's endorsement, but it ended up going to Massey. Massey's campaign did release a statement, and they said it sends a strong message from Republicans in the 4th Congressional District that they want somebody in Washington that will vote and stand up on principle.
And he does vote a lot alone. He votes no on a lot of things. He embraces that moniker, Mr. No, and he does enjoy being a Twitter troll, and he absolutely embraces that role as well. He's not a particularly effective legislator, but that doesn't matter in today's politics. He's good at accumulating followers on social media and keeping his local voters engaged, and that is how you get reelected in some parts of the world, including ours at the congressional level. But we continue to watch local races as well. As you see on the screen now, Thomas Massey declared the winner in the 4th District Republican primary for Congress. So we'll look forward to talking to Congressman Thomas Massey as the November general election nears. He faces Democrat Matt Lehman, who was unopposed and is trying to unseat Congressman Massey come November. A tall task for a Democrat in the 4th Congressional District. You are watching live coverage of the primary election 2022 from Link NKY. I'm Michael Monks, the Chief Content Officer here, alongside Mark Payne, Link NKY Politics and Government Reporter. If you're watching us on Facebook, go to linknky.com. This video is also available there, and so are the numbers. As we get them, we are updating this page. All of the races are there with the numbers next to the candidates' names. So linknky.com, you'll find all of this coverage there as well. And we continue to update that ticker as fast as we can if you're watching us online so that we can bring you the latest numbers. It is a slow trickle. It's not as quick as previous election years, especially in a primary where the turnout is consistently low. I think that Secretary of State Michael Adams said at one point he anticipated less than 20% turnout. I think he had originally said 23% and then dialed it back after some of the early voting did not meet expectations. I don't know where we've ended up yet, but it's still low. But the reason we're not seeing a lot of votes tabulated right now is because of this new software that was adopted at the state level. You spoke earlier with the Secretary of State's office. Tell our viewers what they told you about the situation.
So the Secretary of State's office said that they implemented new software. They weren't sure how it was going to react. We know that the website was down earlier. I think we were all hoping that it was going to maybe speed the process up a little bit, but that hasn't been the case so far. It'll be interesting to see if it doesn't trickle in, if all the results come in at one time, which maybe seems like that's a possibility this evening.
It was certainly hinted as a possibility from Kenton County Clerk Gabriel Summey, who is also on the ballot today in a Republican primary against challenger Danny Whitaker. She sent a note out about an hour before the polls closed that this year would be different. She would not be able to stream the numbers at the courthouse as is usually the case, and she specifically cited this new software that is delaying things. And so we wait. And the indication in that statement from Gabe Summey was that we're going to give you the final results. We may be able to release some numbers throughout. We are seeing that happen after all, but we might get the final results all at once, which could be exciting, or who knows, it could be heartbreaking for some of the candidates out there for it to go this way. I want to go back to Boone County, though, where we have Caitlin Gebbe standing by at the Boone County Courthouse in Burlington, because Caitlin, you were talking a bit about the delay in gathering votes out there and some of the problems that various precincts were reporting.
Yeah, that's right, Michael. And since we last spoke, I was told by someone who is familiar with some of the tabulation happening here that all of the precincts have reported their results. They have delivered them to the Boone County Courthouse. It really is just that software. We're not able to see those digital results, but given that all of the ballots have been returned, residents should be able to see some results from that specific voting location posted to their doors of the location, and here we may soon be able to get a hold of a paper ballot that shows us those early results. And some of the things that you touched on are true here in Boone County. You mentioned that that some of the Republican challengers seem to be getting an early lead in these races, and that's true here in Boone. Some of the challengers that are trying to shift the local party further to the right include Rawlings and Hand, and we have seen, based on the returns of Burlington's 4th precinct, that they do have an early lead against their opponents, the incumbent candidates. So as far as the Rawlings race and the Massey race are concerned, I still only have the results from Precinct 4, but if you're just tuning in, those results for Rawlings are 211 votes. For Massey are 89. You can also see those votes scrolling below me on our page. And for Hand, from the 4th precinct in Burlington, he has received 191 votes to incumbent candidate Charlie Kenner's 110. So that shows how each individual vote is really important in this race, because local offices, any elected official will tell you that local offices impact residents first. And especially in primary races in places like Boone County that are deeply red, you don't see a lot of Democratic candidates on the ballots. And in fact, we only have one Democratic primary race here that has already been declared. Charles Booker has won that 4th congressional seat, according to the AP. They have called that race already, but here in Boone County, we could see races decided by a handful of votes, and those could result in changes on the county commission, changes in the judge executive, who is the head of the county government. We could see just a couple votes deciding who the new property evaluations administrator is going to be, replacing Cindy Martin, who's been there for over 15 years. So it's really important to highlight, I think, that these primary races, even in a non-gubernatorial election and a non-presidential year, these midterm races aren't ones that we should forget. And I think with some of the vote turnout that we have seen, that residents have been motivated to get out there. They have cast their ballots in larger numbers than we may have seen in the past. But until we get that complete physical ballot here in Boone County, we won't quite know how those races have swung. But I am eager to see how some of these more contentious races have come through.
Caitlin Gebbe for that report out of Boone County. I think we've got some news from the 61st House District. This is the seat that is occupied by Republican Savannah Maddox out of Dry Ridge. It's also been redistricted a bit to pick up some new areas, but does still include parts of Boone and I believe part of Kenton as well. So what's the status of Savannah Maddox's primary?
It looks like Representative Savannah Maddox, who's the incumbent, is up 75 to 25% over challenger Jared Likens. This was kind of expected. I talked to both candidates. Jared Likens is pretty similar in ideology to Representative Maddox. I think his only kind of campaign platform was that he had never held office before and that he was bringing fresh eyes to the district. But Representative Maddox is very popular in that district. She has a very good stronghold on it. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I also asked her, the big question for Representative Maddox, is she going to run for governor? Could she be reelected when the when the general election in the fall, and then, go into a gubernatorial election next year? So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, Michael.
It will indeed. She has gotten some statewide recognition for her ardent stance against Governor Andy Beshear throughout the COVID-19 pandemic and the mitigation efforts pushed by the governor. In fact, she was critical of her own fellow Republicans in the General Assembly for not going far enough, and in how she hoped to scale back the governor's powers and other issues related to perhaps vaccine mandates and masking and that sort of thing. So she is a well-known state representative, only a couple of terms in office. She's made quite a name and looks to be cruising to victory this evening for renomination in the 61st District. She will face a Democratic challenger and Debbie Angel in the fall, so we'll look forward to that campaign as well. LinkNKY.com is your home for full results of the May 2022 primary election results in Northern Kentucky. You can see that Thomas Massey has been renominated as the Republican nominee for Congress, a seat that he was first elected to in 2012. He does face a Democrat in November, in Matt Lehman, a Newport entrepreneur. We'll keep an eye on that race as we creep towards November. But right now, we continue to wait for more results to come in from Boone, Kenton, and Campbell counties. A lot of exciting races, a lot of key races that people are looking forward to seeing some results from. We might be getting some breaking news right now. Lacey Starling, our CEO, is handing me a note. Let's take a quick look at this. This is a note out of Boone County for the county commissioner race there. This is incumbent Charles Kenner, who faces a challenge from Boone County Republican Party Chairman Chet Hand. I'm told that with 66% of the vote is going to Chet Hand right now, and that's with 33.4% of the precincts reporting. So this is a big piece of news, and we can check in with Caitlin Gebbe again momentarily to get full analysis of this race. This is an incumbent Republican who looks to be on his way to being unseated. Charles Kenner, a Republican member of the Boone County Fiscal Court, challenged by the Republican chairman, Chet Hand. He is leading with 66% of the vote over the incumbent Kenner right now, with a third of the precincts reporting. So we'll keep an eye on that race and check in again with Caitlin Gebbe momentarily. So we'll also whip around the other counties. We have reporters in Kenton County, Boone County, Campbell County. We're collecting numbers as we can. Let's go back to Campbell County now. We've got Haley Parnell standing by in Newport at the Campbell County Government Building there. Haley, any more news for us right now?
Yes, thanks, Michael. I have total votes in so far for judge executive race. Pendries is still in the lead. He has 3,611 votes to Zincon's 1,763 votes. For jailer, we still have James A. Daly, incumbent, leading. He has 3,303 votes. Billy Fuller is behind him at 1,054 votes, and behind him is Noah Schulteis. He has 629 votes. At the county commissioner level, we have a little bit of a different story. The incumbent is not in the lead in this race, but it is a close race. Challenger Dave Fisher is in the lead with 2,694 votes, with incumbent Painter right behind him at 2,382 votes. Looking at family court judge race, Abigail Volker is still in the lead. She has 4,229 votes. Brenda Bonecutter is behind her at 2,551 votes, and Andrea Janovic is behind her at 1,676 votes. At the Newport City Commission race, we still have incumbent Ken Recton as a leader in this race. He has 679 votes. Behind him, Mike Redwanski has surpassed incumbent Beth Fennell. He has 639 votes, and she is close behind at 638 votes. We also have Julie Smith Morrow. She has 587 votes. Ed Davis has 499 votes. Gordon Henry has 428 votes. Steve Megerly has 304 votes. David Capella has 275 votes. Rich Livingood has 195 votes. And John Santini has 166 votes. So again, with the Newport City Commissioner race, 8 of those will move on to the November general election, where 4 of those will be voted on. So those are my numbers that I have for you right now, Michael and Mark.
Right now, I just want to highlight that Newport news that we got from Haley Parnell, because it looks like Mike Radwanski, a challenger, has shot up from the middle of the pack to second place right now. If you drive through the East Row neighborhood, like I do on my way to the Kroger over in Bellevue pretty frequently, I see a lot of his signs and was wondering when he might surge a bit, and it looks like that has happened. Incumbent Ken Recton right now leading the pack in that big primary for Newport City Commission. Mike Radwanski now second, and incumbent Beth Fennell has fallen to third. Julie Smith Morrow, who is a current member of the Newport Board of Education looking for a different office in the city, is in fourth place. It's important to note that this is a field of 10 candidates, 8 of whom will advance to the November general election, where 4 will ultimately be elected. 2 of those candidates will be eliminated this evening. I saw some early results coming in finally from the 68th House District. This is the seat currently occupied by Fort Thomas Republican Joe Fisher, who has opted not to run for re-election and is running for the state Supreme Court against incumbent Michelle Keller in November. This is a 3-way primary on the Republican side. Did you see that scroll across our screen?
I did, Michael. It looked like Mike Kleins had taken up the the majority of those votes. I think he was getting close to 300. I think Myrna Eads was sitting at 68, and I think
Paul Kloker was in second place there with just over 100 votes, it looked like. So Mike Kleins is leading the field there. Very early vote totals coming in from the 68th House District in that 3-way primary. We'll be keeping an eye on that as we move forward, and we appreciate the report from Haley Parnell in Newport as well. Why don't we go back to Kenton County now, where Kenton Hornbeck is in Covington. Kenton, and let's see, is there anything new coming in Covington?
No, Michael, nothing new to report here. Like I said earlier, the incumbents have had a very strong race. So far, the Kenton County Republican establishment has been seeing the results they've wanted so far. I will take this time to look over a couple races that I haven't really talked about yet. District 2 Constable, the Paul Woodard is actually up 43%. He has 194 total votes. And in the circuit judge race, we have Carl Knockelman Jr., Benjamin Dusing, and Terry Schoberg. Now, Terry Schoberg has a very commanding lead, 4,273 total votes. That will bring her percentage total to 64.95. Again, just to go over the races we've already talked about here, we have Darlene Plummer, 2,453 votes, commanding lead over Michael Constantino, her challenger. Next, we have Gabe Summey, the incumbent Kenton County clerk. She's downstairs. She's working the election right now. She has a commanding lead, 2,853 votes. She has 73% of the vote. She is beating Danny Whitaker, who is a Liberty candidate, as Mark Payne was saying earlier. Whitaker, he is running on the big lie. He's running on election fraud. Of course, there's no evidence for any of that, and the voters seem to be backing that statement up so far. For jailer, closest race so far, Michael, it's Steve Larson and Mark Fields. Pretty close. 1,762 votes for Mark Fields, the incumbent, while Steve Larson, 1,447 votes. Now, again, I just want to reiterate, Mark Fields, he was a jailer that was appointed by Judge Executive Chris Knockelman in 2020, pending Terry Carl's retirement. Terry Carl, of course, the longtime jailer in Kenton County. Chris Knockelman thought that Fields would be a good replacement for him. Of course, now he's running for re-election. Larson was a Kenton County corrections officer. He was fired by Mark Fields for hitting an inmate 4 times with a closed fist. Now the man who was fired is challenging his former boss, something interesting to keep on there. Then longtime politician John Drought, he's up pretty significantly over Tony Schmiotti, his challenger, a fiscal conservative. John Drought, of course, has been a member of the fiscal court since 2010, a former Kentucky state rep for District 63. He has a nice lead, 2,129 votes. And of course, for coroner Amber Constantino with a massive lead here. She looks like she is cruising so far here in the race. But Michael, when I get some more information, I will update both of you. But right now, back to you guys.
Michael Monks did step out for a second. We are in our downtown Covington studio reporting live election results in Northern Kentucky. You can check those updates on our Facebook page live or go to our website at NKY.com. I did see results come in the 64th district, which is incumbent Representative Kim Moser against challenger Chris Mann. Early results are showing that Representative Moser has a little bit of lead in that race, as is expected. The challenger, Chris Mann, really didn't raise money or put up any sort of fight for that district, so it looks like Representative Moser, as if early results are telling, will carry that district. Moser, like other Republicans in Northern Kentucky, serves as the Health and Family Service Chair. She has a pretty important role. I know that we do have some breaking news in Campbell County, and I want to go ahead and turn it over to our reporter in Campbell County, Haley Parnell. Haley, what are you seeing over in the Campbell County Courthouse?
In there, but I wanted to bring Steve over so he had a shot at it.
Hey guys, this is Caitlin over in Boone County. Right now, what I am seeing are some results that were sent to me. I'm looking at them on my phone here on my notes.
We're actually meant to turn it over to Haley Parnell in our Campbell County Courthouse.
Thanks, Michael. We have received all of the final results for all of the elections here in Campbell County. And our three big races, all of the incumbents have won. So for County Judge Executive, Steve Pendry did get reelected to his 7th term. In the jailer position, James Daly did win as well, and County Commissioner District 1, Brian Painter, also won. Some of those exact numbers here for you. Pendry won 5,206 votes to 3,463 votes. For jailer, Daly won 4,970 votes to Billy Fuller's 2,233 votes and Schulteis's 931 votes. For County Commissioner, Painter won 4,180 votes to 4,074 votes. So that was an extremely close race there. Moving on to the family court race, Abigail Volker did win. She won 6,930 votes to Brenda Bonecutter's 3,438 votes and Andrea Janovic's 2,143 votes. And lastly, we have the Newport City Commissioner race, of course. So again, 8 of those are moving on to November. So those 8 people moving on are Ed Davis, Steve Megerly, David Capella, Gordon Henry, Beth Fennell, Julie Smith-Morrow, Ken Recton, and Mike Redwanski. So both incumbents did move on. The 2 people who got knocked out are Rich Livingood and John Santini. So that's very exciting. Also, I wanted to mention that the judge executive race, again, does not have a Democratic challenger, nor does the jailer. So those 2 were renominated, but they will have no challenger in November. Looking at County Commissioner, Painter will have a Democratic challenger in November. Melissa Whalen is his Democratic challenger. And looking at the family court race, we have Abigail Volker moving on and Brenda Bonecutter moving on in that race. Thanks, Mark.
I am getting some updated news from our CEO, Lacey Starling here. That's certainly huge in Campbell County, with Judge Executive Steve Pendry looking like he's going to win another term, facing no Democratic challenger in the fall. It looks like he will carry that seat. That's certainly big news, and especially in that commission seat with Brian Painter as well, holding the lead and looking like he's going to win over Dave Fisher. Dave Fisher and Anna Zinkhan were both Liberty candidates. They've both been instrumental in reshuffling the Campbell County Republican Party, with Anna Zinkhan now being the chair of the party in Campbell County, as well as Dave Fisher being the vice chair. So that's big news. That's a little bit different than what we're seeing out west in Boone County, where the Republican incumbents in the commission seat, Charlie Kenner, is down right now to the challenger, Chet Hand. So yeah, that's a little bit different. I do want to give us some updated news. It looks like Mike Kleins, who is a District 68 candidate, is leading with 86% of precincts reporting. That is a seat that was opened by Representative Joe Fisher, who is running for Supreme Court in the fall. Mike Kleins is running against Paul Cloker, as well as Myrna Eads. So that's certainly big news in the 68th. Again, my name is Mark Payne. I'm here with Michael Monks tonight. Michael's taking a brief moment off screen, so we will see him again soon. We're reporting live from downtown in our Covington offices. We have our reporters in the Kenton, Campbell, and Boone County courthouses. We do have some big statewide news. The Congressional 4th District for Representative Thomas Massey has already been declared the winner, so he will move on to face Democratic challenger Matt Lehman in the fall. We also have Senator Rand Paul moving on. That race has been declared for him, and then he will face Democratic challenger Charles Booker, who also won his primary in the fall as well. News is coming in out of the 20th District, which is a new district that's moved up into southern Boone County, and it reaches all the way down to Franklin County. Quite a large district. Numbers are trickling in, and it looks like Kaylin Studler is leading that just by a hair right now. Studler is kind of a blue-collar candidate that's running from Franklin County, which is where the capital's at, in Frankfort. When I talked to Studler during a forum, he's kind of the blue-collar candidate. He doesn't have a college degree, compared to some of the other candidates. So that will be interesting to see how it turns out. I do want to head back to Boone County now and talk to our reporter out there, Caitlin Jebby, and perhaps see what she's seeing as the results come in for some of those highly contested Republican seats. Caitlin, over to you.
Thanks, Mark. So I just want to read through some of the results that I have. Right next to me, we have Steve Rawlings, who is standing by for some comment on the results that we're seeing in these races. So I just want to read you some of the results I have in my notes here. These are most of the precincts reporting in Boone County. It is an unofficial vote count as of this moment, but right now we have incumbent candidate Judge Gary W. Moore with 61% of the vote, with challenger Timothy Johnson with 38% of the vote. In the PBA race between Jared Bethel and Jonathan Brown, Bethel has received 30% of the vote, while Brown has received 69% of the vote. In the race between Steve Rawlings and Ed Massey, Rawlings has received 67% of the vote to Massey's 32%. And in the District 2 County Commission race between Chet Hand and Charlie Kenner, Hand has received 63% of the vote, while his opponent, Kenner, the incumbent candidate, has 36%. So I have Steve Rawlings here with me, who, Steve, I just want to try to understand what you think the success of your campaign and also Chet Hand's campaign. I understand you guys kind of ran together. How would you credit the success of your campaigns and these results so far?
Many of the candidates ran together. We got to pull resources, meet together, strategize. We beat the incumbents at the ground game. So we started out early, hit a lot of homes, hit tons of homes. We are ordinary citizens. People are tired of politicians. We heard many times that nobody was going to vote for the incumbents. It was just a general theme. We knew what was happening. We expected somewhat of this. We expected to win. We want to represent the people, their values, and the politicians that are in office are not doing so. So there's a lot of issues that were different between us and them. They had been making consistently legislation to raise the gas and fuel tax. There was a bill raised at 40%. Some of the people we beat had been sponsoring that bill. School choice is an important issue in the neighborhoods with people and the education, and they had voted against school choice. My opponent had voted against school choice on multiple bills. And then the shots, the mandates, and the masking were big issues that we hit upon. But generally, people just want ordinary citizens like us to serve as citizen legislators. And we're not in this for anything for our own. And right now, we've got a problem with the Republicans in the legislature are answering to outside interests and lobbyists and not their voters. So we just understood that the voters were getting ignored. And so we're going to get in there and represent the people.
What do you think these early results say about the direction that county Republican parties in Northern Kentucky are headed?
Well, definitely conservative. I don't know your numbers, but I heard it was 5-1 Republican votes. So I'm not sure about that, but overwhelmingly conservative. And there's some moderates in there too, but it has just gone too far to the left. So of course, the world politics and national politics had a huge effect locally.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve Rawlings. And Rawlings reiterates something that we've touched on tonight in this broadcast a couple times, which is the challengers for some of these incumbent candidates have the goal of keeping the party, shifting the parties rather further to the right, feeling that the values that are in place right now are not conservative enough and are not representative of the residents' values. And they say that they are regular citizens who are vying for these seats and trying to represent their neighbors. Thank you, Steve. Back to you, Mark.
Coming out of Boone County, as Representative Ed Massey is currently losing to challenger Steve Rawlings. Representative Massey plays a big role in the House. He's the chair of the Judiciary, but his opponent, Steve Rawlings, is saying that he wants to push that seat a little bit more conservative. He's questioned Representative Massey's, conservative voting history, and that's certainly playing out very interesting right there. We've had some results come in from Campbell County as well. It looks like Judge Executive Steve Pendry is carrying the vote against challenger Anna Zinkon. We're now going to head over to Kenton County with our reporter Kenton Hornback. He's had some results recently come in. I know that some of the incumbents are doing really well there compared to some of the other counties, correct, Kenton? And I am curious what the jailer race looks like as well. If you want to give us an update, over to you, Kenton.
Yeah, for sure, Mark. Thank you for that. So far, we don't have any new results. The last result posted was at 7:17 p.m. on the PDF for the Kenton County Clerk's website. Now, if you're in person here, you will be able to go downstairs outside the Kenton County Administration Building. They do have a paper results taped up to the outside. They're going to be changing those out as the result totals come in. But yes, Mark, as you were saying, the jailer race is a race that is the most close right now. Mark Fields, the incumbent jailer, he was given the reins upon Terry Carl's retirement by Judge Chris Knockelman, and he has been in jail. He has been the jailer for a little over 1 year, for pretty much the entirety of 2021. Now, Mark Fields has 1,762 votes compared to Steve Larson's 1,447 votes. Now, what's interesting, as I've said before, what's really interesting, Mark, about this race is that Steve Larson used to be a Kenton County Corrections officer. Now, he was fired from his job by Mark Fields when Fields was the jailer. So what happened is Steve Larson hit an inmate with a closed fist. That happened 4 times. He was released from his job by Mark Fields, and now he has mounted a challenger campaign to Fields. Now, he's not only running on, his campaign platform is really about, he wants new leadership in the Kenton County jail system. He wants new leadership in the jail command staff, but he also says that Kenton County has a jail staffing problem, and he would like to fix that through different policies. He wants to make going to work at the jail more enjoyable. As a person who has personally been in the Kenton County Jail from a previous job, I can tell you Kenton County Jail seems to be run very well. But that is a race to keep an eye on. Now, on the other ones, again, Mark, like you were saying, the incumbents have done very, very well. Gabe Summey, Darlene Plummer, Amber Constantino, and John Droud all have commanding leads. We still don't have any updates so far, but I will get some to you once I have them. Now, Paul Woodard, again, he is winning the constable primary for District 2. We have Charles Booker, of course, winning in Kenton County with a commanding lead. Same thing with Rand Paul. Same thing with Thomas Massey. Both of the races have been called for them. And also we have the circuit judge race, and that's between Carl Knockelman Jr., Ben Dusing, and Terry Schoberg. Right now, again, as last reported, Terry Schoberg has a large lead. She has 4,273 votes. That is 64.95% of the vote. And again, for the statewide legislative races, again, this is only for Kenton County, obviously the results I'm reading, but there's still not many results coming from those. So those have been slow to count, slow to tabulate. But once I get those results, I'll get them to you guys. Thank you.
Kenton. And I do want to say for the large statewide Senate and congressional seats, Thomas Massey has been declared a winner by AP, as well as Rand Paul, as well as Democrat Charles Booker. So in that Senate seat, Charles Booker will face Rand Paul in the general election. And Charles Booker is the first black candidate to lead a major party ticket in Kentucky. The Kentucky Democratic Party chair, Coleman Eldridge, just released a statement not too long ago saying that. He's saying that representation matters and generations of future leaders will be inspired by seeing this moment. That's certainly huge news. I do think as we head into the general election, that Senator Rand Paul is far outraising his Democratic challenger in Charles Booker. So it will be really interesting to see how that plays out. I want to go back to some numbers that are also coming in from Senate District 24 over in Campbell County. It looks like Jessica Neal is leading that race right now. Again, that's a seat that's held by Senator Will Schroeder, a Republican from Wilder. He's held that seat for 2 terms, but he's decided to retire. And so that seat has been left open. 3 Republicans are vying for that in the primary, Jessica Neal, Shelley Funky Frohmeyer, as well as Chris Robinson. Whoever moves forward out of that will face Renee Heinrich in the fall. Jessica Neal is the Liberty candidate that is, arguably kind of attempting to be more conservative than some of the other candidates in the race. Liberty candidates seem to be doing really well tonight. We just talked to Caitlin Jebby not too long ago where in the 66th district, Liberty candidate Steve Rawlings is outpacing incumbent Representative Ed Messy right now. And now I want to head to the other Senate district in Northern Kentucky that's up for re-election this year, is Senate District 20. That's a new district that heads south into the southern portion of Boone and Kenton County. That's a new district. It was previously held by Representative Paul Hornback from Shelby County. He's been redistricted out and has decided not to run. That district now runs from the southern end of northern Boone and Kenton all the way down to Franklin County. So it takes up quite a bit of space. It looks like challenger Jay Williams is currently leading that race. There are 4 candidates running for it: Jay Williams, Kaylin Studler, and I forget the other 2 off the top of my head, so I'll go back to those in a minute. But Jay Williams is a familiar name in Kentucky politics. He served in the Senate in the 90s, and he was kind of responsible for the Republican majority taking control in the late 90s. I do want to head back to Campbell County to see what those results are coming in. I know that previously reported it looks like Judge Executive Pendry is controlling there, but I wasn't for sure. Could you tell me, Haley, if all the results have came in Campbell County?
Yes, Mark. As I said before, I don't know if you heard me or not. I don't know if there's an audio issue, but all of the results have come in for Campbell County. The judge executive, jailer, and commissioner, all of the incumbents won that race. So Steve Pendry beat Anna Zinkon in the judge executive race. He had 5,206 votes to her 3,463 votes. Daley was the incumbent for jailer, and he won 4,970 votes to Billy Fuller's 2,233 votes, and Noah Schulteis's 931 votes. In the county commissioner race, that was a very, very close race. Brian Painter did win with 4,180 votes to Dave Fisher's 4,074 votes. So again, all of the incumbents in Campbell County have won their races. And going back to who will face a challenger in the general election in November, both the judge executive race and jailer race do not have a challenger, a Democratic challenger in November. So Pendry and Daley do not have challengers. As for county commissioner, Brian Painter will face a Democratic challenger, Melissa Whalen, come November. We also have results for the family court judge race. Abigail Volker won that race, 6,930 votes. Brenda Bonecutter came in second with 3,438 votes. And Andrea Janovic is not going to be moving on to the November election with 2,143 votes. So again, 2 of those 3 did move on. And then with the city commissioners for Newport, 8 of those 10 are moving on. The 2 that are not moving on, I will read first. Rich Livingood and John Santini are both not moving on. The 8 that are moving on are Ed Davis, Steve Megerly, David Capella, Gordon Henry, Beth Fennell, who was an incumbent, Julie Smith Morrow, Ken Recton, who was also an incumbent, and Mike Redwanski. So 2 of those 10, again, are not moving on. And those are all of the results that I have for you, Mark. One of the races that we did not talk about as much was Constable. I will mention that quickly. John Roth Jr. did win that race, 1,791 votes against his challenger, Barrett Champagne, with 1,393 votes. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Haley, for that report out of Newport. I'm Michael Monks alongside Mark Payne here at Link NKY in downtown Covington on primary night 2022. Thanks, Mark, holding down the fort. Well, I got to talk to our friends at KET for a little bit of analysis on what's happening up here. It looks like the count is final out of Campbell County. Of course, we are still waiting on a couple of those legislative races and the counts out of the other counties involved in those districts to come in before we know for sure who has won in the 24th Senate District Republican primary or the 68th House District Republican primary. We'll bring you those results as soon as we know them. We are updating our ticker at lincolnky.com with the latest numbers out of Campbell County. We'll check in with Haley again one more time, I believe, to get another whip around of what went down in that county today. Again, if you're watching us live on Facebook, head over to the website, lincolnky.com. This video is embedded on the elections page with all of the results. So you can watch or listen to Mark and me and our team out in the field while also watching the results as they come in. Just simply refresh the page and you will see the latest numbers that we have coming out of here at the Link NKY headquarters. Again, our thanks to Haley Parnell, who's being assisted by our Robin G this evening on the Campbell County side of things. It looks like our Caitlin Gebbe is standing by in Burlington in Boone County. Caitlin, let's go back to you now because that Chet Hand, Charles Kenner race looks to be a bit of a landslide at this point.
Yeah, it is definitely looking like some of our challengers have wide margins. You saw Steve Rawlings on here earlier commenting on what he feels was the ingredient to the success of both his and Chet Hand's campaign. They ran together on the ballot on similar campaigns, promising to shift the local parties further to the right and return some of those more conservative values to the area. So I want to read you some of the results that I have here that you're also seeing on the scroller at the bottom of your screen. So from the races that we've been following, for the property valuation administrator race between Jared Bethel and Jonathan Brown. Brown looks to have the majority of the vote. That's with 97% of the precincts reporting. Brown has 70% of the vote to Bethel's 30%. So I think landslide is the word that you use, Michael, and I would use that word to describe that race as well. And when we turn to the judge executive race between Judge Gary W. Moore and his challenger, Timothy Johnson, we see similar numbers. Gary W. Moore received 61.4% of the vote to Johnson's 38.6% of the vote. Keeping in mind, Johnson ran on a couple reasons. One of the things that he said that he wanted to run for was because he wanted to give people who weren't necessarily happy with Judge Moore's his candidacy, that he wanted to give them another option. Some Republicans don't want fellow Republicans to run unopposed or unchallenged in these primary races, keeping in mind that Democrats don't typically run in these areas. And so in the general election, these people won't see any opponents. And so these offices are being decided tonight. And of course, the race that we have been watching throughout the primary process is the District 2 County Commission race between Chet Hand and Charlie Kenner. It looks like Hand has clinched the votes by a wide margin, with 62.9% of the votes to Kenner's 31%. And that, again, is with 97% of precincts reporting. Again, when I had Rawlings in here, he commented that their campaigns saw success, he believes, from their door-to-door visits that they paid to voters. And he said that they're just average citizens. They're not career politicians. And they think that people are ready for a change in the counties, and certainly the votes tonight reflect that.
Thank you, Caitlin, for that report out of Boone County. It seems the headlines tonight, Mark, is that the Republican takeover, the type of Republican that took over the Republican Party in Boone County has seen some big success tonight in the races there. Ed Massey, it appears to be defeated tonight in his re-election bid, so losing in a primary to challenger Steve Rawlings. Incumbent Fiscal Court member Charles Kenner appears to be defeated tonight by Boone GOP chairman, the new chairman, Chet Hand. These races weren't particularly close. What's surprising, and I haven't seen updated numbers, is the Sal Santoro race, another Republican lawmaker. Have we seen any new numbers there? It looked pretty close between him and challenger Marianne Proctor at one point.
I haven't seen any numbers come in, but with the results so far coming in out of Boone County, with two Republican challengers really handedly winning those races, it will certainly be interesting to see how Representative Sal Santoro fares against his challenger Marianne Proctor. If tonight's any indication, he's certainly going to have a big challenge as results come in. I think there's 64 precincts in Boone County. I think we're getting close to having those numbers filter in, so hopefully we have some results coming in for that race as well.
We're also keeping an eye on the 69th House District, represented by incumbent Republican Adam Koenig, facing a strong challenge from Erlanger City Councilman Steve Doan this evening. The race had looked pretty tight early on as the numbers started to come in. We are waiting on an update in that race. That's one of those districts that straddles both Kenton and Boone County pretty equally. So is it an indication of how strong the establishment Republicans have been in Kenton County, which you might attribute to success for Adam Koenig? Or will it be pushed over the top by this insurgency in Boone County, where you might place a candidate like Steve Doan, these outsiders who are challenging these longtime incumbents this time around? Otherwise, the establishment firewall in Kenton County is held pretty well this evening, unlike in Boone County, where we have seen Boone County Commissioner incumbent Charles Kenner apparently defeated tonight by Boone GOP Chairman Chet Hand, incumbent lawmaker Ed Massey, representative out of the 66th district, on his way to losing renomination. to challenger Steve Rawlings, and we're also watching a surprisingly close race for State Representative Sal Santoro, the Republican out of Union, against his challenger, Mary Ann Proctor. Let's get the latest on Kenton County now. We'll go to Covington, where our Kenton Hornbeck is standing by with an assist from our contributor, Jason Fennell. Kenton, what's the latest?
So yes, Michael, Mark, what's happening here in Kenton County tonight is really an inverse of what we see in Boone County. And Boone County, we've been seeing the established Republicans falter a little bit, but here in Kenton County, we've really seen the establishment Republicans do extremely well. And I will say one of the races has gotten a little closer. Incumbent Republican John Drought, his race has tightened a little bit. Tony Schmiotti has 44% of the vote right now, while John Drought has 55%. However, he has closed the gap a little bit. Drought sits at 5,348 votes, and Schmiotti sits at 4,243 votes. Now, again, the last vote totals that I was given happened to be at 8:18. That's as of the Kenton County Clerk website. You can update that PDF, refresh if you're watching along at home with live results. But the jailer race, as I was talking to Mark earlier about, has now widened a little bit. Mark Fields has 5,080 votes compared to Steve Larson's 3,944 votes. So as John Drout's race in the Kenton County District 2 kind of widens for the Kenton County Commissioner, Titans, the jailer race has gotten a little wider. So as we look up and down this list, Gabe Summey only adds to her lead total, 7,562 votes. Darlene Plummer, 6,384 votes, with Amber Constantino, the coroner, also having 5,165 votes. So again, what is the story here in Kenton County? Is that the incumbents have been really showing out, and the Kenton County Republican base, the voter base, has really reciprocated that. They've been voting for the incumbents here today, unlike what we've seen in Boone County, where the outside candidates have done exceedingly well. Another race I want to look at real quick is Terry Schoberg adds to her lead over Ben Dusing and Carl Knockelman in the family court judge race. We've been keeping an eye on that throughout the night, and she now has 9,947 votes. Again, I also want to say the statewide races, they are only for Kenton County that I am reporting, but there have been more votes trickling in for reps like Adam Koenig. So if I get more votes, I will tell you all immediately. But right now, I'm going to throw it back to you guys. Thanks.
Thank you, Kenton Hornbeck, for that report. I'm at linknky.com right now looking at the latest numbers that we have, and we'll just recap some of the winners that have been declared by organizations like the Associated Press. Obviously, Rand Paul, the Republican incumbent U.S. Senator, renominated tonight and will face officially the Democratic nominee, Charles Booker, who easily won on that side of the aisle to challenge the incumbent Senator Paul in November. Congressman Thomas Massie, the Republican here, has won renomination easily. He got almost 22,000 votes as of this moment compared to 5,000 for second place finisher Claire Worth. So not very close there. What we are keeping an eye on are some close races. State Senate district in the 20th district, a relatively new district to northern Kentucky. It arrived here courtesy of redistricting and includes southern Boone County. Now that county will have 2 senators. But this particular district stretches from Boone County down to Franklin County. And the latest numbers that we have show Jay Williams, who is a familiar name to longtime Northern Kentucky residents and political observers because he used to serve in the General Assembly all through the late 90s and is looking to return because this seat is now in his district, and he's leading right now with 1,637 votes. And in second place is Kalen Studler, a Republican out of Franklin County. Phyllis Sparks, a longtime Boone County Republican Party activist, is in third place with 1,034 votes. And in fourth place is a Franklin County politician, Mike Templeman, with about 905 votes. So Jay Williams right now with a relatively comfortable lead in that race as we continue to watch the numbers come in. Turning now to the 24th district, This looks like Shelley Fromeyer in the Republican side of things has about 150 vote, 160 vote lead over Jessica Neal right now, 2013 to 1,853. Chris Robinson farther back with 1,246. This is a three-way Republican primary for this open seat being vacated by retiring Senator Will Schroeder. What do we make of this standing right now, Mark?
Well, it seems like I know that we have the complete vote tally coming in from Campbell County. I'm curious to see in the 24th district what some of the vote tallies will look like once Bracken County and Pendleton County start rolling in. It's pretty close right now, it seems like. I'm curious if those more rural areas will contribute to Chris Robinson's outlook in the race, or if it's going to add to Shelley Funky Fromeyer or Jessica Neal's total as well. But I think it's closer than anybody perhaps thought it would. And over in the 20th district, that's really interesting. The last time we updated it, I know that Caitlin Studler was a little bit farther back, but he's gained some ground, which is really interesting.
A race that is a lot closer than I think we expected it to be, certainly as we talked about races to watch, is the 60th district, where Republican incumbent Sal Santoro is facing a strong challenge from Marianne Proctor. So strong, in fact, that our numbers currently show Marianne Proctor in the lead. She with 836 votes, he with 724 votes, so about 112 vote difference there. Sal Santoro is a lawmaker from Northern Kentucky who has risen in the ranks in the House Republican caucus, has a powerful position where he helps craft the road budget, claims a lot of responsibility for the road money that comes up this way. A lot of his fellow Northern Kentucky lawmakers attribute their success in getting road funds to Sal Santoro. But this Boone County wave that is happening tonight is even impacting him. Right now we show Marianne Proctor leading Sal Santoro 836 to 724. We're seeing very early numbers out of the 64th district. This is Kimberly Poor Moser's district. She is well ahead of her challenger, Christopher C. Mann, in the early returns there. The 61st district, Savannah Maddox, it looks like she's cruising to renomination there, outpacing her challenge from Jared Likens on the Republican side of things. The open the open state house seat in the 68th district, which is in Campbell County, stretching from Fort Thomas southward. Mike Kleins has a pretty comfortable lead right now over second place finisher Cold Spring City Councilman Paul Cloker and challenger Myrna Eads, who is in a distant third place. Still waiting for some numbers of consequence out of this 69th district, Mark. This is the race that we had talked about all primary season long about being really tight between incumbent Republican Adam Koenig and his challenger Erlanger City Councilman Steve Doan. Right now, Steve Doan with about 130 vote lead, but not a lot of votes in.
No, not so far. And I think that everyone, as our viewers will attest, is waiting for those numbers to come in to see how that race turns out, because I think the big news tonight, Michael, is the wave in Boone County. Those Boone County challengers are doing really well. And if, that is any indication, Representative Sal Santoro is going to face a tough challenge in his challenger, Marianne Proctor. And Caitlin Jebby just had Steve Rawlings on, who is the challenger to Representative Ed Massey. And one of the things that he mentioned I found particularly interesting was that all those candidates that were challenging those seats out there pulled their resources together. They campaigned together, they held events together, and I think that seems to be a winning strategy happening out in Boone County tonight.
Certainly a significant trend that these are folks who decided within just the past 18 months or so that they would take over the county party infrastructure, change it from the old executive committee format to giving the power to the precinct captain. So it adds a lot more people's voices, they argue, to the operations and organization of the Boone County Republican Party. And then they fielded candidates. Taking over the party wasn't good enough. They wanted to hold some of these seats as well, and they have gone on to claim a couple of victories tonight. I just saw a graphic pop up. Is that a correct graphic to see? That might have been a mistake, so we'll just ignore that for now, but it might be one that's coming a little bit later on as we check in with some of the other state legislative races. But right now, out of Boone County, you're right, the headlines are Ed Massey, well on his way to going down to defeat the incumbent Republican out of Hebron, the former longtime member of the Boone County Board of Education, losing this evening. to challenger Steve Rawlings. And we see a very tight race for Republican incumbent lawmaker Sal Santoro out of Union, facing a strong challenge from Marianne Proctor. Our latest numbers show Marianne Proctor in the lead. And then in the Boone County Fiscal Court, that commission seat, incumbent Charles Kenner looking for another term. He has lost big time to his challenger, Chet Hand, who helped orchestrate this takeover of the Boone County Republican Party and now serves as a chairperson and appears to be well on his way to joining the fiscal court. Of course, these have to go to November. He wouldn't take office until early next year, but a big statement by Chet Hand and his supporters, and certainly the new Boone County Republican Party. Judge Executive Gary Moore staving off a unenthusiastic challenge, but someone who got maybe a lot of votes from those other supporters of candidates like Chet Hand. So it'll be interesting to see how the old school Boone County Republican members and these new school Republicans in the county are able to operate together moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I mentioned earlier, for those just joining us, Representative Sal Santoro and Representative Ed Massey hold chairs to two important committees in the House. Representative Massey holds the Judiciary Chair, and Representative Santoro is the chair of the Transportation Subcommittee that kind of oversees the infrastructure budget, which was really instrumental in bringing money back to the region this year for infrastructure, but more importantly, money for the Brent Spence Bridge. I know that that was a collaborative effort between Northern Kentucky legislators, a very bipartisan effort, I should say, not just between the legislators up here, but they were, coordinated very well with Governor Andy Beshear's office, and so that will certainly change the dynamic of the House. Those two legislators lose their seats.
I've got a few more votes out of the 69th district. This is State Representative Adam Koenig, the Republican incumbent, facing a challenge from Erlanger City Councilman Steve Doan. Steve Doan had about 130 vote lead last time around. Koenig has narrowed that by a little bit. It's down to about a 68 vote margin. Steve Doan with 872 votes, Adam Koenig with 804 votes. This is shaping up to be the barn burner we thought it would be.
Yes.
What is surprising is the margin of victory by Steve Rawlings over Ed Massey in the 66th district, the margin of victory for Chet Hand in the Boone County Commissioner race over incumbent Charles Kenner, the tightness of the race in the 60th district, where Sal Santoro, the incumbent, is losing right now to challenger Mary Ann Proctor. We are keeping an eye on that. It is very, very unsuspected. I did not expect that result. So we're watching the 60th district very closely, a surprising finish by Marianne Proctor. A lot of votes still left to count in that particular race. And let's check in with some of our friends now. It looks like Haley Parnell is standing by. I know that the Campbell County votes are mostly finished, but I'd like to go over them again just for our viewers who are joining us again. Big judge executive primary there, a close county commission race, a big field of candidates looking for a seat on the Newport City Commission. So I'm going to run over these votes now with our Haley Parnell, who is live in Newport. She's been working this evening with our contributor, Robin G. Haley, what's the feeling in the room now that it looks like Campbell County is just about finished counting?
Well, Michael, as you can probably tell, there is absolutely no one left in the room besides me. I'm assuming they left to quickly go and celebrate. So all of the incumbents here in the three big races won. I think the most noteworthy race was definitely the County Commissioner District 1 with incumbent Brian Painter and his challenger Dave Fisher. Painter won by only 106 votes, so his total was 4,180 to Fisher's 4,074. Now, I did get a comment from Brian before he left. Excuse me while I grab my notebook. As I said before, the room quickly cleared after the results came in, but I did manage to speak with Brian before he left. He said he was very pleased with how the results turned out. He said he's really happy with everyone who worked on this win, and a lot of people in the South County showed up, and that's why he scored that win. Now, one of the bigger races was definitely the judge executive race. Incumbent Steve Pendry did win, as I said. He won 5,206 votes to challenger Anna Zancon's 3,463 votes. And I also got comment from Judge Pendry before he left. He said, "Thank you to everybody who supported and helped me." He said it was a very gratifying to have the help that he does, and without it, it would be very difficult to do the work that they do. He said he is very excited about the potential for the next 4 years. And he said he thinks that is a feeling that goes across northern Kentucky. He said,
Haley, I just want to interrupt you for a moment because this was a rematch between Steve Pendry and Anna Zinkin in a Republican primary 4 years ago. These two squared off. It was closer in 2018. Steve Pendry won by about 500 votes. This time it's almost 2,000. In covering this race, what do you think the difference was this time around?
Yeah, definitely. So as you said, Zincon won by about 500 votes the last.
Zinkin lost by 500 votes last time around. I guess this time we both had some difficulty getting Anna Zinkin to talk to us as journalists, right?
Yeah, sorry for that slip up. I think this time around, there was just a little bit more voter turnout. I think back in 2018, this is a rough estimate, but there was about 6,000 voters per 38,000 registered voters that showed up in Campbell County. But yes, Michael, it was difficult to get Zincon to speak with us. We all wrote up articles, kind of previews of the candidates, who they are, what their positions are, so that voters could get a better idea of what they represent and who they wanted to vote for. And Zincon declined to speak with me for my article, and she also declined to speak with Mark and Michael for their forum. And I think that that definitely could have played a role in her loss this time. I think voters want to be educated on who they're voting for, obviously, who's representing them in their county. And if you don't know what someone is representing or what their values are and things like that, then you're probably not going to vote for them. And Steve Pendry has been in office since 1998. So definitely folks have an idea of what he stands for here in Campbell County.
Let's take a look at these Newport numbers because this is such a big field. It's highly unusual for a field like this in Newport. 10 candidates, 8 of them will march on, 2 will be eliminated. So this is kind of a, you lick the thumb and put it out in the wind and get an idea of where things stand. What stood out to you as we look at these numbers?
Definitely what stands out as I look at the actual numbers, there were 3 candidates who secured in the 600s. That was incumbent Beth Fennell and incumbent Ken Recton, and then also Mike Radwanski. So I definitely think Mike Radwanski is someone that the 2 incumbents should look out for. He was very close with those numbers. In fact, he was 1 vote above Beth Fennell, who was an incumbent. So I definitely think that is noteworthy for the general election in November. But
I was just going to. You're absolutely right that is a very astute analysis, Haley, and we appreciate it. Ken Recton, a longtime local politician, the top vote getter in this primary with 679 votes, but first-time candidate Mike Radwanski finishing with 639, just 1 vote ahead of another incumbent member of the Newport City Commission, Beth Fennell, who got 638 votes, and then Julie Smith Morrow, who is currently on the Newport Board of Education, well-known to Newport voters, in 4th place with 487. So you want to finish in the top 4 in the primary because you have to finish in the top 4 in the general election. But some other candidates are nipping at their tails here, and we'll make some adjustments probably over the summer as we head into the fall campaign. Ed Davis finishing strong with 499 votes, and Gordon Henry finishing in 6th place with 428 votes. Steve Meggerly, a distant 7th place, a former Covington City Commissioner, someone who ran for the school board in Cincinnati and is now running for the City Commission in Newport in 7th place, just 304 votes for someone who's been around a while, and securing that 8th spot is David Capella with 275 votes. Rich Living Good and John Santini eliminated in this primary. That's been Haley Parnell and our Robin G reporting in Campbell County. Haley, Thank you so much for all your hard work tonight. I think we can let you leave. You're the only one left. I'm sure that the administrators there in the Campbell County Government Building in Newport would love to see you leave.
I agree. Thanks, Michael, and thanks to all the viewers who turned in. It was a great experience. But yes, as you can see, I'm the only one left here. So good luck to everybody else who is still out on the grounds reporting. Kenton, Caitlin, hats off to you all.
And that is our Haley Parnell signing off from Newport. We're still live in Covington and Burlington, where votes are still being counted. Let's get an idea on where the vote count stands in both of those places right now. It's got to be winding down. Let's start in Covington with Kenton Hornbeck. Kenton, what's the status?
Well, as you can see behind me, like Haley was saying, I've been the only one in here the entire time, along with Joel and Jason. But yes, as far as the status of the vote, we don't have a percentage on the amount of votes tabulated with the PDF form that has been continuously updated. Now, we do have some other interesting numbers, Michael and Mark. We have voter turnout calculated so far, which for Kenton County, it seems to be fairly solid at 12.13%. That is, I believe, higher than the last time, although I don't want to speculate. I don't have the numbers in front of me. Total ballots cast so far, we have 17,217 for the Republican ballots, which is the majority of the votes because this is mainly a Republican primary here in Kenton County. We have 10,894 votes. You know, there's 141,968 registered voters within Kenton County. It's the third largest county in the state of Kentucky. So for that percentage, I feel like it's a pretty solid turnout for the most part. Now, I just want to give the public a quick rundown. We do not, again, have a total percentage of the votes tabulated, but what we do know is the incumbents so far have been doing very well. Amber Constantino, 5,165 votes. She has 60% of the vote. John Droud versus Tony Schmiotti. That's a closer race. It's tightened up here with the last update at 18. John Droud has 5,348 votes for 55% of the vote. Steve Larson, Mark Fields, that's widened a little bit. 5,080 votes for incumbent Mark Fields. He's, of course, the jailer. Steve Larson, 3,944 votes. Of course, he's running against Mark Fields. He was a former employee at the Kenton County Corrections Facility and was fired by Fields. He's now running against him. Gabe Summey, 7,562 total votes. She is really commanding the lead here. She has more votes than really anybody else in these local county races for either party. And lastly, we have Darlene Plummer. She's jumped out to a pretty significant lead, 69.13% for 6,384 total votes. So those are the primary races we're really looking at. Of course, Paul Woodard, he has been leading pretty substantially in the Constable District 2 race. We have Charles Booker versus Rand Paul. Both those races have been called here in Kenton County. They will go off and face each other in November for the Kentucky Senate election. And as far as family court...
Okay, Kenton, I do want to ask you about that family court race because that's really the one of consequence that we are curious about because this is an open seat and it looks like Terry King Schoborg ran away with this one and will face one of her two gentleman opponents in November, but she more than doubled the second place finisher there, and Ben Dusing appears to be well eliminated.
Yes, Michael, Ben Dusing seems to be eliminated. Obviously, we don't want to make any calls yet, but it is a substantial lead for Terry Schoberg as well as Carl Knockelman. So Dusing looks to be down for the count in this race, unfortunately for him and his supporters. Now, Schoberg will go on and most likely face Carl Knockelman. Again, most of the voters showed up for Schoberg. She has 9,947 votes total. And, you know, there's been a saga, obviously. Megan, our editor, Megan Goth, reported a lot on Ben Dusing and what he's been up to. He was on the ballot, then he was off the ballot. Now he's back on the ballot. He's been in Ukraine. He's been out of Ukraine. He was wearing a chicken suit. There's a lot going on there. So it seems he has been eliminated from this race.
Thank you. Thank you, Kenton. Yes, it looks like the man who was wearing a chicken suit in the Ukraine for a little while has been eliminated. So he was on the ballot, off the ballot, on the ballot, and now off the ballot this time, as it looks like Terry Schoborg and Carl Knockelman will advance, with Terry Schoborg obviously feeling good about her chances in November to finally secure a judgeship. She has run before unsuccessfully. Kenton Hornbeck, who has been reporting live from Covington, and our Jason Fennell, who's been contributing there along with him. Thank you for your good work tonight, Kenton. I think we'll let you leave Covington as well, because it's dark behind you, and I'm sure Judge Knockelman is ready to kick you out. So thank you for your hard work tonight, and we'll see you in the morning.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Mark. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in at home. We have Joel, Jason here with me. I'll see you all later. See you.
And that leaves us with just one county reporter left. Where should we go next?
Not for sure, Michael. It maybe seems like Boone County.
Boone County it is. Let's go to Burlington, where we find our Caitlin Gebbe standing by. Caitlin, before we say goodbye to you tonight and give one last recap of what went down in Northern Kentucky, tell us what went down in Boone County quickly.
Well, thank you for remembering me out here all by my lonesome. What went down here tonight in Boone County is that we had some political newcomers in the area run tighter races than expected, and in some cases they upset their incumbent opponents. And in one case between Chet Hand and Charlie Kenner, Chet Hand upset the incumbent Charlie Kenner. Now that's going off of about 97% of the precincts reporting here in Boone County. Some results are still trickling in, but the margin between some of these races is so wide that as those results continue to trickle in, I don't imagine that ground will be made up. We've also seen that incumbent candidate Judge Moore has clinched another term here in Boone County, defeating challenger Timothy Johnson. Johnson received just under 40% of the vote, which based on his campaign, he didn't claim any sort of finances, donations to his campaign online in the Kentucky Elections Financial Registry, but he received a lot of the vote based on a campaign that logged 0 donations compared to Judge Gary Moore, who reported that he had received over $100,000 in campaign funds, spending over $31,000 in those campaign funds on his race. So it looks like Moore has clinched another term with almost 70% of the vote to Johnson's. He's just under 40% of the vote there. And then we also have our PVA race between Jared Bethel and Jonathan Brown. Brown, when he spoke to me, he said that he has been working part-time with Cindy Martin, who is the current PBA. He is a civil engineer, he's a licensed land surveyor, and he's also an attorney.
We'll keep an eye for those final numbers as the night goes on. Caitlin, you've done outstanding work there in Boone County. Here's what I think is interesting. We talked about this Chet Hand, Charles Kenner race a lot. You wrote articles about this leading up to the race. Chet Hand winning easily tonight over the incumbent Charles Kenner. Chet Hand is, of course, the chairman of the GOP. But we also saw Judge Executive Gary Moore renominated by the Republican Party comfortably. But Chet Hand got more votes tonight than Gary Moore. So I think it will be interesting how they end up working together.
Right, yeah. Here in the Boone County Commission, each item that has to be voted on is voted on by 4 members. That includes the judge executive and the 3 county commissioners. And so Chet Hand's vote will be 1 of 4, but it does represent a shift in the wind here in Boone County and across northern Kentucky on what the people want and what they're willing to show up at the polls for.
Caitlin, thank you so much for your work tonight. It looks like things have cleared out in Burlington, so we'll let you clear out as well and get to work on your writing, and we'll see you in the morning. Thanks, And also thanks to our Tricia Shire, who assisted you out there tonight.
Yep, it's been a pleasure, guys. Take care. Have a good night.
All of our reporters who have been live tonight and Mark Payne will have some writing for you to read at NKY.com as we look at the aftermath of this election. Of course, there are some races that are still outstanding. We're pretty much sure of what's happened for the county level races and the city race in Newport, the family court races that we're watching. It's these legislative races that we are waiting for some final results out of, and particularly the 69th district. I don't have any new numbers there for Adam Koenig versus Steve Doane in that Republican primary. Koenig, the incumbent, trailing by a small amount to the Erlanger City Councilman Steve Doane. The 60th district, Sal Santoro, the incumbent out of Union, still trailing right now a challenger, Mary Ann Proctor. What we'll do now to conclude our broadcast, as we continue to update these numbers online at LincolnKY.com, though this video will end, you will see updated numbers at LincolnKY.com. Let's do our slideshow of tonight's winners that we can say comfortably. I believe we've got some slides that we can pull up on the screen to show who did well, who is celebrating tonight on May 17, as this primary finally comes to a close. Mark, a little bit exhausting. And if we can see, just go ahead and scroll through any of them. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, disregard. I think our graphics won't work. What, are we going to have to say their names and pull them up? All right, here we go. This is our first time doing this. It's a trial run for November as well. It's like we're advancing out of the primary to the general election, and we'll have it even better together by then. We do hope you've enjoyed this. We love the camera look. You look great tonight on the cameras.
You as well,
Beautiful
Mike.
shot. My goodness. All right, let's go. The U.S. Senator, which for some reason I'm just noticing says 4th District on our website. It should just be U.S. Senator. U.S. Congressman is 4th District. But U.S. Senator, of course, Rand Paul renominated as the Republican candidate for the U.S. Senate, as he will seek his 3rd term in the United States Senate. And if we have we don't have that graphic. Charles Booker will be his Democratic challenger. Thomas Massie is the winner of the 4th Congressional District in the GOP primary. So Thomas Massie easily winning renomination on the Republican side there, outpacing his top challenger, Claire Worth, very significantly. I mean, 33,000 votes plus for Thomas Massie and just over
As is
7,000
expected,
for
Michael.
Claire Worth. Yeah,
Yep.
not vulnerable at all.
Nope.
Not vulnerable at all. A couple years ago, local attorney Todd McMurtry mounted a challenge against him in the Republican primary, one that he tried to capitalize on some of the anti-Trump sentiment that Massie was associated with, maybe falsely, and Massie won with 90% of the votes.
Right.
So.
And with the former president now endorsing him, it was going to be.
Absolutely. All right. We don't have final results out of the 20th Senate District, but Jay Williams is the leader right now. Second place is Kaylin Studler, a candidate out of Franklin County. Boone County Republican activist Phyllis Sparks is trailing in 3rd place right now. A lot of ground for her to make up. The 24th Senate District is still kind of close, but Shelley Frohmeyer pretty comfortably up with just over 4,000 votes, or actually almost 4,100 votes, to Jessica Neal's nearly 3,800 votes. Chris Robinson trailing in 3rd place distantly right now. Let's run through these state house races. The 60th district, Sal Santoro, the incumbent, trailing right now against challenger Mary Ann Proctor. In the 61st district, Savannah Maddox easily winning renomination there on the Republican side over challenger Jared Likens. The 64th district, Kim Moser going to win that race, it looks like, over challenger Christopher Mann in the 64th. The 66th. There you go.
It looks like we have Steve Rawlings is going to, hold it over Representative Massie. And when I talked to a lot of folks ahead of the election, they were expecting 1 or 2 incumbents to drop their seats. But I think that that's going to be a surprise, and a lot of folks are going to wake up in the morning, and that's going to be a big surprise for him.
We'll be needing to get to know Steve Rawlings better if he does go on to be the next representative out of the 66th district in Boone County. Yep. In the 68th district, this is an open seat. Joe Fisher leaving the State House to pursue a seat on the state Supreme Court. And this 3-way Republican primary, Mike Kleins, well known to a lot of local families because he was the superintendent of the diocesan schools here in the Covington Diocese. he kind of ran away with this one. A three-way race. Second place finisher Paul Kloker, Cold Spring City Councilman, finishing a distant second, and I guess conservative activist Myrna Eads even farther back in third place. So very comfortable win for Mike Kleins.
Yeah, and I think that Representative Joe Fisher, as I mentioned earlier in the night, had that very consistent conservative vote in the House, and I think Mike Kleins is going to carry on his legacy as far as, conservative values, pro-life, pro-Second Amendment. I think that Kleins is going to carry his legacy.
His 69th House District, we are still waiting for. This is one we'll be watching throughout the night, updating online at lincolnky.com as soon as we get more numbers. This is Republican incumbent Adam Koenig facing a strong challenge from Erlanger City Councilman Steve Doan. Our latest numbers showed Doan up by 68 votes, so we'll continue to watch as those numbers come in. Let's run through the three counties. In Boone County, Judge Executive Gary Moore is renominated by his Republicans, easily beating Tim Johnson. Gary Moore finishing with just over 6,200 votes, Tim Johnson under 4,000 votes. But the big news at the county level in Boone County is incumbent Commissioner Charles Kenner defeated by challenger Chet Hand. Chet Hand is the winner of that Boone County Commissioner primary, easily 2-1, defeating incumbent Charles Kenner. Chet Hand is the new chairman, of course, of the Boone County GOP as well. We'll look at the property value administrator there in Boone County. This is an open seat, longtime Boone County property evaluation administrator, Christy Arlinghouse, not seeking re-election. Jonathan L. Brown won the Republican nomination tonight, easily defeating Jared Bethel. Turning now to Kenton County, this is the big race, don't you think, out of Kenton County, but easily decided.
I think so, Michael. We've talked a little bit about this tonight, but the Kenton County clerk, incumbent Gabrielle Summey, facing off against Danny Whitaker, who is a notable for his
election conspiracies.
Election conspiracies, exactly. And so that was a bit of a landslide there. So we'll see Gabrielle
Summey winning that race over Danny Whitaker. The final vote tally, it wasn't even close. Gabe Summey's 7,862. I shouldn't say final vote tally, but this is where it is now. 7,862 votes to Danny Whitaker's 2,885. The jailer race was also one of note. Incumbent Mark Fields, who has never been elected to this position before, he was appointed in early 2021. He is cruising to victory over his challenger and former employee, Steve Larson. Mark Fields winning with about 5,080 votes right now to Steve Larson's 3,944. John Dowd, it wouldn't be a local election cycle without John Dowd on the ballot. He's been on the ballot for many, many years. He is running for another term now on the Kenton County Fiscal Court in the 2nd District Commissioner's race. John Dowd winning a somewhat close race. 5,348 votes for John Dowd, 4,243 for challenger Anthony Schmiotti. Looking at that coroner's race in Kenton County, Amber Constantino, who is currently serving in that role, who was appointed, winning nomination there, 1,762 votes to Jessica Cooper's 1,188. That's not the correct graphic. Let's get that one off. It should be Amber Constantino, not Michael Constantino. They are married, and we're both on the ballot today, but Amber Constantino is the winner of the coroner's race. So that was a mistake. What you just saw was Michael Constantino. He lost. Darlene Plummer is the winner of the property value administrator race. Darlene Plummer winning 6,384 votes to Michael Constantino's 2,851 votes. Let's go to Kenton County now. Steve Pendry, a pretty resounding victory there over Anna Zinkin tonight.
Well, that's actually over in Campbell County, Michael.
Did I say Boone County? Let's go to Campbell County.
Steve Pendry, the judge executive who's held that seat since 1998, is declared the winner over challenger Anna Zinkon. They faced off in 2018, and it looks like Pendry won a little bit more handedly this time.
Just a 500 vote margin last time in 2018, so you certainly saw Steve Pendry perhaps on the campaign trail working harder this time, perhaps more than he did in 2018. I don't know how you gauge that really. He certainly always campaigns and works to earn votes, but this time you could tell he was working to fend off a challenge after the closeness of the 2018 race. It paid off for him with a big win tonight. The judge executive reelected tonight. The jailer race, James Daly, the incumbent, a winner tonight, 4,180 votes. 4,970 votes, easily outpacing his two challengers, William Fuller and Noah Schulteis. Brian Painter, the first district commissioner for the second cycle in a row, very close come from behind win for Brian Painter. 4,180 votes there in that Republican primary against his challenger, Dave Fisher, who got 4,074 votes, 106 vote difference, and that is a final vote tally out of Campbell County. And in the family court races in Kenton County and Campbell County, we don't need to show you the graphics because two people are actually advancing. In Kenton County, it will be Terry Schoborg, who got the bulk of the votes tonight, and will face off against Carl Knockelman, who advances to face Terry Schoborg in November. Ben Dusing is eliminated from that race. On the Campbell County the Campbell County Family Court, Abigail Volker was a top vote getter tonight, 6,930 votes. She advances to the November election against Brenda Bonecutter, and Andrea Janovich is eliminated from that race. So again, two people are advancing from that race. There is no winner technically tonight. Abigail Volker and Brenda Bonecutter will face off in November. And the Newport City Commission race, the 8 people who are advancing: Ken Recton, Mike Radwanski, Beth Fennell, Julie Smith Morrow, in that order, 1 through 4. And then we have Ed Davis finishing in 5th place, Gordon Henry in 6th place, Steve Meggerly a distant 7th place, and David Capella in 8th place, eliminated from the Newport City Commission race are Rich Livinggood and John Anthony Santini. That's the primary election. We'll keep updating online as new numbers come in for some of those legislative races, and then we'll get to work on what's happening in November. Mark Payne, let's take a breath.
Think I'm ready for bed, maybe. I'm gonna have to stay up and watch the results of the 69th and the 20th and the 24th. Those are big races, though, as I'm sure a lot of the viewers out there are gonna want to watch those races. But no, it's been an exciting night. Big news, especially out of Boone County, and yeah, exciting night, Michael.
Yes, indeed. So thank you for watching tonight. We do appreciate it. Just because this video is ending doesn't mean our work is concluding. We will continue to update the numbers at NKY.com. Our thanks to our CEO, Lacey Starling, and our managing editor, Megan Goth, who were here tonight helping us crunch the numbers, collecting that information from our field team. I'm Michael Monks. This is Mark Payne. This is NKY. We'll talk again soon. Thanks for watching.